Welcome to the Late Night with Chalky podcast.
Just the Google Translate.
So you just speaking to that thing? And
Yeah.
Just hit French?
No, I just typed it in and it says, and it spits it out and listen.
Amis et familles, frères et sœurs, bienvenue au podcast Late Night with Chalky.
I'm gonna let that do it.
No, I want you to say it.
No.
Dude, kind of sexy voice
Amis
too.
et familles, frères et sœurs, bienvenue au podcast Late Night with Chalky.
I kind of like that.
It's pretty rad, right?
It's like,
Let's listen to it.
She's got kind of a nice, like, sexy voice.
Yeah.
Amis et familles, frères et sœurs, bienvenue au podcast Late Night with Chalky.
And I'll say it after.
Okay.
All right. But this is pretty cool. This will be the first time we use it with frickin' Sean Fleuriau. You know how to say his name? Lar?
Fleuriau.
Okay, ready?
Amis et familles, frères et sœurs, bienvenue au podcast Late Night with Chalky.
In other words, friends and family, brothers and sisters, welcome to the Late Night with Chalky podcast.
We're just mixing it up, catering to our international listeners. Thank you very much, Lyndon.
More French
Dude,
people,
expanding.
please.
Our guest this week has 3 decades of experience in action sports as
He
a
ain't that old.
regional, national, and director of sales. 20 years of which have been focused on the eyewear category, working for Arnette, Spy, and Filtrate. Added experiences with working for bands Rich or Poor and Salty Crew has helped catapult him to where he is today. Woo-hoo-hoo.
How do we get these fucking amazing guests?
We are stoked to sit down and congratulate him on his new U.S. Sales Director position at Rhythm, Mr. Sean Flers. Fleuriau. Did I say that right?
Oh, got it right. I mean,
Close enough. You got a lot of like
nobody ever
vowels.
gets it right on the first go, but I mean, that was pretty impressive.
Well, I butcher a lot of names and a
He
lot
does.
of words.
He
So.
does.
That's quite the intro there, fellas.
Dude,
I mean,
let us cheers
proper.
with our
Cheers.
favorite
Ah,
Shoots Japanese beer lager.
Yeah.
that's good stuff.
You guys got to hunt that
Where can I
down.
find it? Anywhere in
Good.
San Clemente?
I don't know yet.
Okay. let me
We'll
know.
find out.
They're going to start distributing it though. But
It's tasty.
Oceanside.
We'll help support the sponsors.
Yes,
Yeah.
always, always.
Yeah, and if you guys have any alcoholic beverage connections, we like let us.
Yeah.
I used to. We had a salty crew beer when I was over there. It's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Nice.
Salty blonde.
Yeah.
But technically, I still might have a couple left in the fridge.
Nice.
I'm sure that you can just make a phone call and they'll send you a case.
Could probably just run over there if you guys want.
Well,
Still
we
know the code unless they changed it.
yeah. Well, we're in Irvine at your corporate headquarters.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know it's Christmas or holiday week. You know.
I
New
mean,
Year's.
we're salespeople. We're always working, right?
Always.
On the clock.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, but
Every damn day. But yeah, this is a killer.
It's a pretty cool little operation.
Yeah.
It's all inclusive, so we ship, we do finance, we sell shit.
Yeah.
You guys are sitting in the design room right now, and yeah, it might be some, some sneaky peek 2004 stuff.
you hear that? Maybe I'll do a
Nice.
little walk around
Yeah,
and
check it out.
real quick. Won't get any.
And
fine
Rhythm and
details.
Rusty share the same building.
Same owner,
Same owner.
same building, a lot of the same kind of shared resources, but we do have we have a rhythm team here, management team, and we have a Rusty management team as well.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, it's pretty
Well,
cool.
before we dive deep into the here and now, let's start at the beginning, bro.
Beginning, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in Irvine, being graced with the presence of HP's finest.
Ew.
HP's finest. I'm looking
He's
at
talking
him
about
right
me.
here.
Dude. He's talking about me.
I know he is.
Yeah.
I know he is.
Dude, Lyndon gives me some waves when I come up. I haven't made it to the pier yet, but
Neither has he.
Neither
Yeah.
have I really.
Dude,
I'm not a pier guy
never
anymore.
get there.
So you grew up in San Clemente?
So
Okay.
raised in San Clemente, been in San Clemente pretty much my whole life.
Nice.
I was actually born in the Agora Hills.
Wow.
Just like your best friend, Edic.
Enoch was, I think he's
Thousand Oaks or
Thousand
something, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Agura's right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there, yeah. So the valley. So I was born there. Parents split when I was 2 years old. So my dad stayed up in that area, the valley. And then my mom bolted for San Clemente, had some friends down there, and had a job waiting. So that was my primary place of residence.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been in San Clemente since I was 2.
Nice.
So 49. So a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What a great place to grow up, though.
yeah,
you
I
know?
mean, I feel super blessed, and probably wouldn't have, grown up surfing in the surf community if I wouldn't have been in San Clemente, or maybe, I don't know. I
Yeah.
remember, when I was younger, I would still go up to like the valley to visit my dad, like summer weekends and stuff, and he'd take me down to like Malibu and Zuma. I had the Maury Boogie in the back, so learned it.
Did your dad surf, you said? Or
My dad did
just,
not.
just
Yeah.
was supporting you, taking you?
Yeah, just go to the beach,
Yeah.
Summertime in the valley, it's
Hot.
hitting like 115. You're like, give me the
Go over the
freak
hill.
out of here. Yeah. So just through the canyon and learn how to ride a boogie board, whitewash.
Yeah. Boogie boarding is
That's where we all started, right?
yeah, it's where it all begins. So how did you get into surfing? Or how old were you too?
So technically, I was like, I think I was like 9 years old, and it was the first summer for me where my mom worked full time. The first summer that I'd have to go to like some
Camp or something?
day camp or
Yeah.
something like that. So my mom, my neighbor, buddy, he was like a year or two older than me. So finally my mom's like, okay, I'm gonna let you stay home. I was 9, no cell phones, like, I was
You get arrested now for
a
that.
latchkey kid.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, for sure. I was like, I still kind of tripped out on that.
Yeah. I mean, back then, parents kind of let loose or let go of, their kids earlier, like, 6, 7 years old,
For sure.
and if you go back even further, dude, guys like Herbie Fletcher are already working at 6 years old doing paper routes.
Kirby, that'll come up in a minute, but so I was 9 years old, first summer, like had, some freedom. So I lived about 3 blocks up from the pier.
Nice.
And so, on Ola Vista, if you guys are familiar with that little zone right there. So like every day that summer I'd walk down the pier with my buddy and we just go boogie board south side. So couldn't go to north side because north side was where all the surfers were. And
Yep.
It's kind of
Did they blackball like Southside? No.
South side was blackball, so it was only like
Until T Street, like just a little bit by the pier?
I think it was actually from T Street. In the summertime, it's T Street to south side of the pier.
Yeah.
Blackball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We had the same thing in
Yeah.
Huntington, but it was all
And
the way.
so you and your buddy would be on south
South
side
side.
boogie boarding
boogie boarding. Yeah. So
and,
I
and
was
checking out the surfers.
So I was checking out the surfers, kind of watching, and I had a couple of friends that I went to school with that were already surfing the pier, and I would kind of see them over there. I was like, fuck, those guys are good, like they kind of rip. I don't know if you guys remember like Wyatt Dearlove, that name rings a bell, Joe Stoffer.
Oh.
So those guys like basically lived at the pier, and I just remember they had like their Team Hobie surfboards, and Wyatt he rode for Quicksilver.
Already?
Yeah, those guys were
Rippers.
like 9 years old. So I started when they were 7. I was just learning the boogie board pretty much like 9 years old. So spent that summer down at the pier, learned the boogie board, started standing up on my boogie board. So next year I was 10 and finally convinced my mom to give me a surfboard. I need to get in the game. Everybody's starting to surf and I'm still like this kook down on Southside with a boogie board. So first surfboard, mom takes me down to Herbie Fletcher's surf shop,
Nice.
which is now the
Catalyst.
Catalyst,
Yeah.
right? So that was like 80s, like early 80s. And walked in and walked out of there with a 5'10" Midget Smith twin fin. And
Nice.
it wasn't still
First board.
First board.
Brand new or used or?
It was used.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5'10". Couldn't fit it under my arm.
That sounds like a magic board for today.
Dude, I wish I could find it.
Right, midget was RP midget, but man, he had incredible, shapes and stuff. What were the other kids riding? Like, did you know, like, shapers or anything? You just looking for a board your size?
I mean, yeah, it's like Herbie Fletcher
Yeah.
was pretty much, at that time, I think you had like 3 shops in San Clemente. You had Herbie, you had Brian Clark, which is BC. So
On the other corner.
So BC, I think Kobe was there actually at one point, but BC was kind of like the go-to surf shop for like the north side of town.
Mm.
And then you had the south side of town, which was Stewart.
Yep.
And then like way south was Rip Curl. So that was
Wow.
kind of how it was broken out.
Hmm.
And
Now, did you, as a Grom, go to all these shops too?
so for me, I got my first board there. I was living by the pier. So technically, I learned how to surf at the pier when I was 10. And then like 10, 11, somewhere in there, ended up moving to the south end of town. So I moved over by like, where the golf course is, the municipal golf course,
Yep.
south end of town. Kind of over by like Pedro's.
Okay.
Pedro's
Yeah.
is, everybody knows where Pedro's is.
Yep.
World's famous fish tacos.
Born and raised on that stuff, but so ended up moving over there, and so then I started going to Riviera. So Riviera at that point was kind of my go-to. So I'd say I probably spent more time there, growing up, learning how to surf.
Which is kind of not a very easy beginner wave, so it's good to graduate and go there to a
Yeah.
whole new like kind of wave breaking. Like,
Well, it's just it's a different scene. Like the pier back then, growing up, was kind of gnarly.
Yeah.
It was like pretty
He-
rogue.
Heavy dudes, like
Well, it's just
local.
pretty localized. Like,
Yeah. Who are you looking up to, or like, who do you remember being like, whoa? I know the Wyatt kid, but like,
your
Yeah,
age
like
group.
my buddies Joe and Wyatt, they were my age though, so it wasn't really looking up to them. I mean, for sure it was like Matt Archibald.
Yeah.
Archie was at the pier every day. Like him and Dino,
Yeah, running.
pretty much were like
the
Chris-
shit.
running the
Chris-
show.
Shane Dutton too, right?
So Shane was more like T Street though. Wouldn't really see him at the pier, so I didn't really know Shane until a little bit later.
And sorry to interrupt, but how wild is it? Like, here's the pier, and T Street is fucking right there.
Dude, still today
It's like
it's kind of
100
pockets.
something yards.
Yeah,
Right?
we
It
talk
is.
about that at a lot of breaks. Not necessarily like, hey, just quality. If you take quality or the wave, itself, but just every, 100 yards, every half a mile, whatever, you have the locals for that particular like area of the beach, and it's like, do you know there's a better wave that way, or sometimes there's a better wave that way, and the people just go to the same spot. I trip.
I mean, I had no idea. I'd probably look at T Street when I was down at the pier and just didn't even know anything about it.
Did you ever go to, did you go to the 1990?
Studies.
No, Budweiser.
Kids don't
PSA.
play down here? Yeah.
Okay,
Oh yeah.
I watched that video last night.
No,
No
way.
way.
Yeah,
Dude,
I
I
was-
was just watching some of those too.
it's so amazing, right? I was lurking on YouTube trying to find D-Boss stuff,
Yeah.
and 1990 PSA at north side of San Clemente Pier.
Dino win it.
No, dude.
Wow.
So here's the final.
Did Archie win it or Slater?
No, dude.
Who
None
won?
of those
Who
guys.
won?
Chris Frohoff,
Whoa.
the
Chris?
biggest, tallest
Wow.
guy, goofy foot.
Dude, that guy's a condensate machine. Man.
Frohoff.
Yeah.
It was Frohoff, McNulty, Archibald, and Vinny De La Pena.
Yep. Vinny was a
Yeah, those 4 guys in the final.
That's funny. I was just watching the lowers one that Christian won like 2 nights ago.
89.
Yeah, was that
Yeah.
89?
Yeah,
It was like Colin Smith.
Colin Smith.
It was like Vinny, like Dino.
yeah.
So these guys were like the dudes when you were up and coming, like a Grom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I was like glued to Matt Archibald.
Yeah.
I mean, Archie was definitely, I think, the most like progressive, and everybody's looking at Archie. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Dino too. Dino was right there. Archie I think was more like free surf and just like like super radical, and Dino was kind of more like the contest guy.
Yeah.
But it's both of them. And then, you know, down at the pier, it was like Jim Hogan. He was down there a lot. Jim Pinkerton.
Nice.
Who else?
Well,
McNulty's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
McNulty's, Paskowitz.
Yeah, Paskowitz. I didn't really see those guys down there. You know, they're probably lurking down there.
Yeah.
You know, there's a scene. You know, Snips was more like T Street.
Yeah.
You know, like Snips and
Crickshank. And
Wardo, like a young Wardo.
Steve.
You know, no.
Chris.
Chris Ward.
Okay.
Yeah, like a young Wardo. And then Steve Ward. Kind of hooked up with Steve Ward a little bit later when I started to surf more like trussels, cottons. Kind of got down there, but yeah, so started at the pier, learned how to surf there, and then moved to south end of town, and then it was like ribbies until I got a car and was able to drive, and then it was like T Street, a lot of T Street, you know, gotta get down there. Swaggles is shooting in the morning, you know, you gotta get in front of the camera.
He just passed this year, huh?
Yeah, pretty recent.
Rest in peace. And he was the local photographer.
He's
that,
the local photographer.
yeah, that shot T Street pretty much.
He was like pretty much the only guy.
Yeah.
You know, like Creek, you had Flame, and then second one, you had pretty much Fred Swaggles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was the man.
And he would be at lowers every afternoon shooting into the lefts.
Is that what he did?
That was, you know, lowers is kind of a funky, hard place to shoot, but like in the afternoon, you got that kind of backlight on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Photo sweat.
Yeah.
So your who's your, like, you know, your Rat Pack you talked about, why and who else?
So I mean, like, you know, I guess my circle was like Enoch, you know, Enoch and his younger brother Ethan.
Nice.
Ethan was a really good surfer, so like that crew. Eric Crane, you know, Crano, he showed up. I think we were sophomores, came over from New Jersey, and Crano had like the freaking big house right there at T Street. So he was in the lineup. All of a sudden, we see like this dude like in the lineup at T Street all the time, you know, like every day. And we're like, who is this guy? And he's like, you know, a pretty energetic guy. We started seeing him in high school, and so yeah, I got to be friends with Eric Crane and his sister Heather. I don't know if you guys know his sister, but like his sister was like super hot. Like she was Miss OP.
No way.
In Huntington, like 1992. Yeah, she was Miss OP.
We're gonna have to look that up. Really?
Yeah, you guys missed that one.
Oh, I was on the beach for sure.
Yeah, you were probably there.
Yeah, I was like,
I was probably there. I was working at HSS.
I was probably down there surfing in Bourbon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like Enoch, Ethan, Eric Crane, Chad Navarro.
Yeah.
Who you guys probably remember Chad.
Chad ripped.
Chad, great surfer. Benji Severson.
Yeah.
I know Benji.
Nice. Yeah.
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 Yeah, there's so many good guys.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, you know, the circle.
And what was your like progression after like getting that first twin fin? You know, that midget.
So it was, you know, rode that for a little bit and then kind of quickly realized like I need something more my size. So then I jumped into started riding BCs, not Bruce
Brian
Bomar,
Clark.
Brian Clark.
Yeah.
And so I got my first like kind of true shortboard thruster.
New, custom, or just used again?
Custom, brand new.
Nice.
And yeah, I see Brian, he surfed Riviera a lot.
Yeah.
And so I see him down there and was progressing, you know, it was like kind of starting to like
do some
surf
turns.
yeah, you know, I mean, like starting
Trim.
to like legit like be able to surf. And so he's like, God, you know, you should start doing contests.
Mm.
And so I was
Brian Clark told you this.
yeah, so it's Brian. Brian's like, yeah, why don't you do some contests? He's like, you know, if you can do good, you know, maybe we'll get you on like a team program. And
That's
so
it.
back then,
Like
you know,
shop flow kid, like
shop.
boards and
boards,
shop
because he had a shop, but he was also the shaper.
Yeah.
So I
And
remember
some of your friends were already sponsored,
I had friends already sponsored, like,
Yeah.
you know, you go to school and like you got your friends that are like ripping and they have like show up like Team Hobie gear and you're like, whoa, dude, how's that happen?
Yeah.
What do you got to do to like get on
Yeah.
like, the team?
And as a kid, like you're on the outside looking into that, you know, you're just like, Wow.
That was
So
cool.
jealous and so like FOMO, right? You're like, fuck, man, I want that. I
That was
want
cool.
free sweatshirts. I want free T-shirts. I want a sticker on my
your
board.
friends are showing up in like new gear, new boards, and it's like.
And you've got like, you're in the, you know, like Huntington, the hotbed of talent, and sponsors are looking for kids in those zones.
But you don't even like. Back then, you didn't even realize that yet.
Yeah.
It's kind of all you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, I just know like
Yeah.
every time I go surfing, like there's fucking people that rip
Yeah.
all around me, and some of them are people that you know look back and
But that's such a great like place to grow up, because what pushes you harder? Like, you know, I just remember like I just want to do a good turn in front of these guys, you know, and press or do something, you know, like you always want to one up your buddies, and you always want to kind of like flare up. If you're surfing by yourself and nobody's around, it's like, yeah, I got to go good turns, but it's not as important as doing.
It's not as rewarding
yeah.
unless someone that you respect
Yeah.
sees you do
Right?
that, right?
But you know how important that is? Like
Oh,
as a
yeah.
kid, you're like, oh man, I want to like spray him on the shoulder, you know, or
for
whatever.
sure. I mean, I was a
Yeah, I did that today, bro.
yeah.
It never gets old,
Yeah.
right?
You get in a shower on the way in.
But it never gets old, you know, to go spray.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, still today. you
But
know.
there was no competitive like amateur contest scene in San Clemente, right? You always had to go like to Oceanside, or like, was there events there?
Not really.
Because I don't
Not
remember
really.
as a kid ever
San
really
Clemente?
doing events in San Clemente.
I mean, I was 11 when I first started competing.
Yeah.
And my first contest was WSA.
Yep.
It was down in Carlsbad, right in front of the offshore surf shop.
Mm.
And so I was 11. It was the Menehune division, and which was like 12 and under. And yeah, I had my brand new BC. I was super fired up, and so yeah, it was cool. Like I showed up, and I was competing against my buddies who had a couple years more experience, and yeah, I showed up. First contest, got second place. So I beat.
Only one heat?
Yeah.
Well, no, I think there was three. You had to surf two, and then you get to the final.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, made it through a couple heats. I remember that, and because I ended up beating both the guys that were my buddies who had been surfing contests.
Yes.
I was like, fuck, I did it.
Yeah.
I caught up to these guys. I beat them in this contest. I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. And yeah, so from that point, I was always super competitive. Grew up playing team sports and stuff. So I was like, this is sick. Individual sport, super competitive. I'm like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And
What other sports were you playing?
so I was playing like baseball and soccer, pretty much. Like that was it.
And was that your doing? Like you like those sports,
That's
or was
pretty
it
much
parents
my
like, hey, you got to do some sports?
That was more me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was a pretty active kid.
Yeah.
Pretty hyper.
Now, was in the summertime, would your dad like say, hey, you should come live with me during the summer, or was that even an issue?
No, so that didn't happen. So he stayed in like that valley area, like Westlake, Agora, until I was 6. And then he ended up actually bouncing. He left, and he was an engineer, and he ended up leaving the country to go. He went to Iraq.
Whoa.
And to go pursue a career as an oil engineer. So he was in Iraq for a couple of years, and then he went into Saudi Arabia
Dang.
for
Same thing, like the oil
he was
industry.
an oil engineer. Like
Let's
he
just say you made a lot of money.
dude. Yeah, so, it's a funny story, which we can get to in a little bit if you're sticking to a timeline. But I actually went over there when I
To
was
Saudi Arabia?
I went to Saudi Arabia.
Epic.
At what age?
I was 11.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was a pretty nuts experience.
So how long was he in Iraq for?
So I think he did Iraq for 2 years, and he ended up in Saudi Arabia until I was 17.
Wow.
That's a long
So-
stint.
And you went at 11.
I was 11.
You have any siblings?
No siblings.
Just you. Only child.
I mean, he had 2 daughters,
Okay.
but not with my mom.
Like after
So they
you,
were like
you have younger
older.
sisters.
Yeah, I mean, I met him once, but they were in Canada,
Mm.
and so yeah, that's where my parents met, in Canada. So my dad was French, So I was living in like Eastern Canada, like French Canadian, and then my mom was just there visiting.
Wow.
So, yeah,
An American visiting in Canada
yeah,
and met a Frenchman.
that's it. Yeah.
And then here we are.
Irish. Yeah.
So,
Pretty well.
did you travel to Saudi Arabia by yourself, or?
So he would usually come out and visit me, like, maybe for like a couple weeks every year. Back then, like, there's no cell phones.
Yeah.
And communication was
Letters.
pretty far and few. Yeah, I mean, he
Letters
was.
and phones.
He would pretty much like, he'd check in with me, like maybe.
You get a birthday card, Christmas present.
Birthday card or whatever, and yeah, I mean, he had a good setup. He lived rent free, had no expenses. He lived like in this kind of compound where they put like
All the employees that,
Americans
yeah.
and like it wasn't just Americans, but it was like foreigners,
International
people,
workers.
international workers, and he lived in this big like fucking compound. It was like a small city. It was all like borders, so you were protected. It was like security getting in and out of there.
Yeah,
And it was pretty killer, like, residential, like nice homes, like
for sure.
he was in like a condo, because it was just him. But yeah, it's
Did you meet other families that had kids there and they lived there? And
yeah. So when I was there, it was during the school year. I think that was like 6th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, or something like that. So over there during the school year, and he had a neighbor who had a family. And so it was like his working buddy.
yeah,
And so the neighbor, they had kids a little older than me, but the wife would become like my tutor
dang.
while I was there. So I'd go over there every day, and like she would make sure I'd spend a couple hours to get my schoolwork done. And then their kids went to school, so like they'd come home from school, and then I'd hang out with them.
What time of year and what was the weather like? Like, because you think of
Desert, right?
yeah, like just
Yeah,
dusty, dirty, sandy.
it's pretty dusty, pretty
Yeah.
dirty.
How long were you there for?
I was there for a month.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Like I remember
What a
quite a
good
bit
experience,
actually.
but
back
wow.
then. It's pretty wild, I mean, it was cool. So on the way there, we went to France for a week. So with my dad, we stopped in France, and he took me through like Paris, and just like showed me where he grew up, and kind of got to do that a little bit. It was during the winter, so it was like kind of cold and rainy, and I just remember that, like kind of touring through like Paris, France. I was 11 years old, and obviously you didn't appreciate it,
Yeah.
but it's
Like,
cool.
get me back to the ocean, Dad.
Yeah, like I was just, it's 11, dude. I was like frothing.
Yeah.
I learned how to surf, and I was kind of bummed, looking
Yeah.
back now. Like, I wish I would have just appreciated that time. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
a month goes quick, but not when you're 11.
Not where
You
you
know,
Yeah,
when you're 11, and not where
during the
when
school
you're
year, left my
somewhere.
friends.
Yeah,
you know?
when you're not where you want to be.
yeah,
Like a day is
Yeah.
10 days.
Yeah. So you think like Saudi Arabia, you think like super hot, but it wasn't that hot. So I was there during the school year and winter time, and I was surrounded by desert, and it was a trip. So I was there for a month. And,
What did they do for fun, the kids?
I mean, there was
soccer,
like
basketball, like they have
yeah, I mean there was like sports. Kids went to school, they played sports, and I remember I had like a little BMX bike. There was like a little BMX track, so I would do my schoolwork, and then I'd grab like this bike, and I'd just go like ride around, like fucking hit jumps, and just ride around. Like I'd
You
ride
made the
around.
most of it.
I'd ride around the whole community, and then sometimes, I would venture out, and I would leave and go, like there was a beach nearby, so I would like sometimes go down to the beach.
Dang.
Like
So-
ocean?
Yeah, the ocean.
Huh.
So where I was based, so you fly
Is that the
in.
Red Sea or?
So I was on the Red Sea's on the western side. I was on the eastern side in this place called like starting with a D, like
Dubai?
no, not Dubai, Daharan or something like that.
Okay.
So if you look it up on a map, like you fly into Riyadh, which is central Saudi Arabia, and then we drive out to Dhahran, and it's right on the water, right on the Persian Gulf.
Now, was there waves or no?
I don't remember waves. I remember it getting like super windy, and you kind of have like wind chop, like Florida style surf. You get super windy. Like next day you'd have like a wind chop. So I remember I did boogie board once, but the water was fucking freezing.
Freezing?
It was, like, super cold, and there's nobody else around. I was just spooked out. It was just me.
Yeah.
And my dad would kind of just watch from the beach, and I was
wow.
like, "Fuck, I don't know if there's sharks out here." Like,
Yeah.
so
The
yeah, it was a
Persian
trip.
Gulf.
Yeah.
What a trip.
Crazy.
So yeah. got to
And
do that.
yeah, I mean, 11, you're just like, yeah, tripping.
I was just trying to find stuff to do, you know.
Yeah.
At that point.
So back to California.
So back to California. Yeah.
Second in the WSA, beat your bros.
Beat my bros, and then I just was like hooked. I'm like, all right, I'm doing this. I'm gonna start surfing contests, and
Did BC say like, dude, you're freaking
so
on?
that was it, dude. Just took one contest, and literally, so that contest, I remember walking up the beach, and I don't know if you guys remember Offshore. Remember
Yeah.
that brand? So it was Offshore Surf Shop, and the guy that beat me in that contest was Shane Stoneman. You guys probably remember Shane Stoneman.
Yeah.
For sure.
Fucking ripped. I mean,
Ripped.
that guy. I mean, I could never get past him. You know, so I spent my entire like amateur career basically getting second place to Shane Stoneman every time, all the time, and he was just like unbeatable. You know, I mean, so because he was kind of in the same region, you know, like
Yeah.
South region or whatever.
Is he from down south, Shane Stoneman?
He's
Yeah.
from San Juan.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
But then he
Moved
up
to
north.
like to Ventura or
I think he's up in the Central Coast.
Yeah.
Central Coast, yeah.
So Shane was riding for offshore.
Okay.
So I'm walking up the beach, you know, getting ready to bail. I got my trophy in hand. I'm fired up,
Sight.
psyching,
First contest.
first contest. And so he's down there with Craig Coman. And so they both kind of walk up and they're like, hey, good job, you know, like, you know, I'm Craig. I run the surf team or whatever, do marketing for offshore. And he's like, you know, super stoked, like you did really good. Would you be interested in like, you know, wearing offshore? I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 11 years old. My mom's standing next to me, and she's just like, oh, this is killer, you know?
Yeah.
I don't have to go buy, you know, this bullshit clothes anymore.
Yeah.
And so she was psyched, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so I went up there like that week up to the office, probably, you know,
Somewhere around here.
somewhere up here,
Yeah.
Irvine, and I just walked out with a huge box of clothes, bunch of stickers, and from that point I was just like, I'm hooked.
Dude, how lucky did you get?
Super lucky.
Nope. Because it's your first contest. You
Yeah.
haven't like accumulated a resume.
Haven't done
Because
shit.
back then, that's what kids had to do. You'd have to have a portfolio, right? And put pictures in it, contest results, all that stuff, and then present it to the guy, you know, and hopefully they're like, yeah, you can get on.
Yeah, lucky, right place,
That's
right
so
time.
awesome.
And you know, they're probably just back then, like you said, you know, 2 heats and you're in the final.
Yeah.
Not a lot of competition back then, but
Yeah. But Craig Coman, he's kind of a gnarly dude, right?
For sure.
So
Yeah.
you must
ran a
have
bunch of
surfed
teams.
really well to get his attention. You know what I mean? Because he's probably he's a critic of surfing, and he's pretty upfront and
Yeah, he's just
kind of
not like
blunt.
a shop manager or somebody
Yeah.
that's like, he's like the real deal.
He would
like,
tell you, yeah, like for them to come to you and say, because I don't know Craig Coman myself, but from what I've heard from other people,
Yeah.
because he's kind of a dick,
I
right?
kind of remember, like I don't remember that because I didn't. So that was kind of a short thing, you know, with
Yeah.
offshore.
But I mean, like I said, like what I'm trying to say is, you must have surfed really well for him to go, you know, you're on board, you're on the team.
I mean, I was just stoked. You know, free clothes, and like I've been watching my buddies.
So did you get like a bunch of stickers,
a bunch of stickers?
board lambs?
I think so. Yeah, like the laminates back then. Yeah,
Yeah.
remember those. So laminates, stickers.
Oh,
box
those
of
are
clothes.
huge, right? The
Huge.
offshore.
Yeah.
They were huge. I wish I had.
Here's the ones we sell. Here's the team ones.
It was gnarly. I mean, it took up like 3/4 of the board.
What,
sure.
did they make clothes that small? Because I remember as a kid, that was, you know, the smallest, you know, brands made was like 28 and small. And I was like, I just remember not having my mom like, Mom, you got to bring these in like an inch or two so I could wear it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I remember it. Like yeah, I walked out with a ton of stuff and it all fit. So yeah, that was cool. That was,
And then what was like the competitive theme from there on out? I'm doing all the WSAs all season.
so from there, yeah, I was just got into the WSAs, and then like I went back and I talked to Brian. He's like, all right, fuck, good job. Like, let's get you on the board. So he got me on the board program like pretty quick. And so I had like 2 boards. He would give me 2 boards. That was kind of my starter kit. And then so I remember.
Did you have to pay for them, or will they float?
No, it's 2 boards, but I had to trade them in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get 2. Like here's your 2.
And what were you riding? Like what kind of design? Squash, swallow.
I had 1 squash and 1 rounded pin.
Nice.
And
Same
thrusters,
size?
Yeah, like 410 or something like that. Like I just remember getting my first custom board. I was just stoked because it could fit it under my arm.
Yeah.
You know, it was light and like. Dude,
Now,
Take a stack of the order forms, and then because you didn't have like they had to outline and and you do your own color drawings for the air spray and stuff.
yeah, airbrush back then too. Everybody. Had
I used to
like
take stacks. I'd just go into the shapers, and it's still like a stack. I'd take them home and I'd do all these different designs on them. And I'll make it that one next.
Did you? Did he kind of like give you a tutorial on design or anything? Like, hey, Sean,
shaping or just airbrush.
just like board design and like
Yeah.
what squash tails do, what a round pin does, or swall. You know what I mean? Like the different styles of surfboards for your surfing. For
Not
your
really.
particular style.
I wasn't probably didn't have the attention span.
Yeah.
To even
I'm gonna make you
find
these
it.
boards, bro.
I just here's my weight, here's my height, just go from there.
Yeah.
And he was shaping boards for a lot of like the Groms too
Yeah.
around that time. So Brian, I had him shaping boards, and then I had this cool like new program with offshore. But I remember it didn't really last long. So I think it was by my next contest or the rest of that season. I started getting hit up by Darren Brillhart, who
For
you
Rusty?
guys know. No, it wasn't Rusty. He was a Maui
Beach Town.
Sons.
Oh, Maui and Sons.
Or yeah, wait, fuck no, that's right.
Beach
It's
Town.
Actually, you're right, dude. It was Beach Town. It was Beach Town. It was Chris Burke.
Okay.
So Big B, you guys know Chris Burke?
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
Remember Chris Burke? So
And
Chris
Brillhart
Burke.
was working with him?
No, Brillhart, that comes next.
Okay.
So sorry, jumped ahead. Brillhart was at Maui Sons. So you're right. So it was Beach House, Beach Town. So Beach Town was kind of a quick thing, and like, so I knew Chris. I grew up in Secondly. Like he was always out at T Street, and
He's a good surfer.
Good surfer, and I kind of knew him just from surfing, and so he was like I remember seeing like Snips was on Beach Town,
Yeah.
and like
Chris Morrow?
Shane Besh, and Chris Morrow, I think.
Dang,
Shane
they had a
Besh.
stacked team.
Yeah.
Dude, the
And
team
Beach
was
Town was like so.
pretty legit.
It was legit, but like I don't remember seeing it in stores or anything.
I don't remember there.
I remember the
know
logo
what I mean?
and the ad.
Yeah.
I remember the logos and the ads,
Yeah.
but I don't remember seeing it on people and in stores. I never saw that,
Yeah.
except for the guys that rode for 'em.
Yeah, it's probably
A little
BT,
before my time.
Maybe Herbie was carrying it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I don't remember that far back.
Yeah,
But and like my buddy Chad was riding for Beach Town. So Navarro.
Okay.
So Chad and I weren't like that good of friends yet. This is like I don't know, like 4th grade, I guess. Yeah, it was pretty early. And so Chris is like, yeah, let's get you on the program. I'm like, okay, cool. This is like.
Did you have to tell offshore, or you just?
Yeah, I think I told Craig, or I don't know, maybe Craig was already gone, and it just was like, okay, well, I don't know if I had any contact there,
Yeah.
because I don't even think like Stoneman, I think he had moved on, so
Yeah,
I don't know
short
what
lived.
happened to that program. So anyways, I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do
But Beach Town had like a
Yeah.
roster.
Yeah,
Like,
it was
they had everybody.
cool stuff. It was, a lot of guys from around town. So I was like, okay, cool, like let's do this. And so I just remember like Chris would do these like workouts, in town.
So he started doing the workouts.
He was like doing these workouts. So we come down there as like team workouts, and we're like on the beach, like doing laps up and down the beach, and then be like, okay, you gotta paddle out, you paddle straight out, and then you gotta ride like a wave, and you gotta meet me down here like a mile down the beach. And so first one to meet me like a mile down the beach.
By surfing
kind of
waves that direction.
Yeah, so it's like you surf down there, and then you paddle straight back out. Like you couldn't like paddle your way down there. Like you catch a wave and then you paddle straight back out. And you catch a wave and paddle straight back out. So we're kind of doing these workouts, and it was just like, you know, I don't know, we were doing that. Like Snips, he was kind of running those programs with us, and like Shane, you know, Shane was a little, for me, he was like closer in age, and you know,
it was just all the
he was the
competitive kids.
standout.
Like
Yeah,
the kids
so-
that were like, you know, surfing the events, like this was your coach.
Yeah, and so they were like, Dan was like, Chris, like, okay, we're gonna pay for the contest. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I have my entry fees covered. I'm wearing like some cool shit, and it's like kind of more of like San Clemente community vibe,
Yeah.
you know. So that was cool.
Your
So,
mom's just like, what?
dude, mom
Free
was
clothes?
stoked.
What?
Mom was
Contest
stoked.
paid?
And I had like Big E would take me to contests because, like you said, you know, like the contests were you're usually
Oceanside,
like either Oceanside or
maybe-
to Huntington.
yeah, maybe occasional creek, maybe occasional
Creek. Yeah.
churches, maybe, you know.
Yeah, those came a little bit later, but yeah. So that was kind of the deal. Was doing the WSAs through Metahoonies, you know. So I was 12 and under, and yeah, I think I finished that year in like the top 5 or 6.
Look at this
for
guy.
Metahoonies. So I was like, yeah, I was just like fired up. So then we get into like middle school, and then we start.
What school are you going to?
So I went to like elementary. I went to Concordia, and then I didn't go to Shore Cliffs for middle school.
Is that where everybody went?
That's where everybody went. So I went to a Christian school for middle school. That's where some of my friends went, like Benji and just a couple of my buddies. Their parents didn't want us to go to Shore Cliffs because back then, like Shore Cliffs had like a reputation for like a lot of drugs, a lot of like fights, like gang violence. Like you know, back then, you know, San Clemente was
seedy back
kind
then.
of rough, dude.
Yeah.
Like
A lot more seedy back then than it was now.
there was pockets, dude. Like there's places in town you just wouldn't want to go.
I think a lot of the coast was like that, you know,
Yeah.
like it just wasn't as
Well, it's like a
As welcoming as it
military,
is
a
today.
military
bordered
city,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Like
a little bit.
Oceanside.
San Clemente back then, you know, if you think about it, it's kind of more like a retirement community.
Yeah.
So a lot of like elderly, like older people, and then you have like the military, right? So you got Camp Pendleton right there, so you have a lot of
And
military.
the beachfront second homes, which probably weren't that many.
Yeah, and it was like, you know, you kind of have like down by the pier, kind of like Hispanic area, and then we had like kind of like a little like skinhead fucking culture.
There was a skinhead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was kind of gnarly. So you
Yeah.
kind of had, you know, like the beaches were kind of, you know, broken apart like that. You know, like the pier had kind of that vibe. You know, like a lot of skinheads, kind of gnarly. Fucking lots of drugs down there. You know, down there in the summer, I remember like watching people have sex under the pier for the first time. Like that's where I saw people have sex for the first time was under
Yeah.
the pier. You know, like
Wow.
people, you know,
I
smoking
gotta go to the
weed.
pier more often.
Well, dude, it's changed a lot. Like that
Yeah.
was 80s, you know.
Yeah,
Today
yeah.
it's like way cleaner. But you know, and then you had like State Park was kind of like, you know, that zone too. So kind of as I got a little bit older, kind of stayed away from those zones because I just didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And you know, like me, like I was like kind of long hair, long blonde hair, and you know, those guys were like, "Who's this fucking guy?" You know?
Yeah.
Like, so I was like, whatever. I just went surf Riddies. That was my spot. T Street a lot, and then I had friends that lived in Cypress Shore, so I'd go down and surf Cottons a lot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my zone. Right
If
there.
I won the lottery, that's where I'd want to live. Cypress Shores.
I think me too.
Yeah. It's pretty dreamy.
It's pretty
For,
insane.
for a surfer, definitely.
Yeah.
I one of the hot spots along
Yeah.
the coast. You know, to have waves right there within, you know, a short bike ride, left, right. You
The
know.
architecture and the homes in that area.
Well, shit, you win the lottery, you can build your own dream.
Yeah, but I like that style.
Yeah, that neighborhood.
Modern.
That neighborhood's cool.
It's pretty cool.
So if you're, hanging with Chad and Stoneman, these guys, they're like already on NSSA and like,
Starting to,
they're
right?
yeah, like what was it like by your sponsor getting contest paid for it? Is it like now I'm entering everything?
Yeah, so I kind of stuck to WSA because I feel like that was kind of where, so like Beach Down, and then I ended up with Maui Suns. So like Denver.
You whore.
Yeah, I know, dude. I was
You
like
little
changing it
sponsor
up.
whore.
Slut.
The Beach Down, I think, kind of just dissolved.
Yeah.
I think offshore did too.
Yeah.
And so it was another thing. It was like at one of the contests, and Brillhart was there. He's like, hey, let's get you on the program. And so I think for me, like everybody I was working with, was always about like WSA, and I think it was more because it was contest fees were a little bit more accessible.
For sure.
And the events, like I remember NSSA was more like San Diego. I felt like more down San Diego, and Huntington, where WCA was a little bit more local and just more accessible for me.
Yeah.
So I went WCA route, and I think it was 13, 14 or whatever. I had probably my best run. Ended up, I was 14, ended up second that year in the
Ratings?
in the ratings. And
What was
it
number one?
killer.
You remember?
So number one, like I think at that point, I think Stoneman ended up going NSSA. So I was WSA. I think it was like Pete Rocky. You guys remember Pete Rocky?
Yeah.
And like Corey Pierce.
Definitely.
They're like, are they
and
both
more-
up north guys?
Yeah, so this
Malibu?
is like,
Yeah.
this is like going all the way up to like Santa Cruz.
Oxnard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was the whole region. So I ended up finishing second.
Damn.
And so made the WSA All-Star team that year, and then got invited to the Nationals. So I'm like, kind of, getting up there, starting to kind of make a little run, amateur ranks here, and so yeah, that was killer. Like went to Nationals that year, 14. Member WSA All-Star team, and that year was at Sandy Beach.
Hawaii?
Yeah, Sandy Beach, Hawaii. So Jay, you're probably like in the mix there, like.
Yeah, I don't remember going to Sandy Beach for a contest, but yeah.
So that was like
Oh.
everyone. That was national. So you had like all the best NSSAs, like ESA, WSA, and I just remember showing up at that thing. I was like, holy shit, this is gnarly. This is like all the guys you're seeing, like Groms and magazines, and like performers,
And
never performers. And
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, as because they would post the professional and amateur rankings in the back, and you would, you have your region, but you would check who's killing on the East Coast, who's killing in California and Hawaii, and you recognize those names, and eventually you meet up with them enough.
D-Bob made the comment, it was like, I would compete so I can get my name in the magazine.
Damn right.
In those performers.
Yeah, so D-Bot, I need to listen to his too, because he was definitely.
He's your era, I think.
He was a year older in age, so I would only compete against him like when you're coming into that division.
Yeah.
You're on the younger side, and then when I was on the older side of the division, he would move up. So it was like the same thing with Chad. We were all the same grade, but like him and Chad and like Shane Dashin, we were all kind of the same group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like a year or so younger, and I was the same thing. Like,
how'd you do in that contest, Sandy Beach?
So I showed up there, and it was just, it was gnarly, dude. Like my first heat, it was like.
And the waves are hard to surf at Sandy Beach.
It was, the waves were actually pretty good for that event, I remember. And it was like Jason Magallanes, Ross Williams.
Oh,
I think
that
was my
Hawaiian
first
heat?
Yeah, first
well,
heat.
it's a national, so
Yeah. You're better off surfing against a Floridian in Hawaii than a Hawaiian in Hawaii.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're getting the best of the best from each region, and those guys were dominating in Hawaii.
So it was like, fuck already, like stage
Davey
fright
Boy
kicks in.
Gonzalez and
Davey Boy, Kaipo,
Kai-
Wahias, and like yeah, and then you have like the Danny Mojados and like Slater, Todd Morcom, Paul Reinecke.
Yeah.
Seeing all these guys, you've been kind of seeing those guys, their names, and it's like, whoa. So my heat, I choked. I got interference, actually, like a paddling interference, because they start the heat and they stop the heat with a horn, and then they start the heat with a horn.
So there was quite a little delay.
There's a little like 30-second delay, and so I think I missed where they told you like you can't paddle into the zone until you hear the second horn. Well, I'm sitting there with 5 other guys, and I hear the horn, and I just fucking jet into the
I'm
lineup.
pole positioning these guys. I'm getting the
And
first
I was
wave.
like, dude, the only way I'm gonna make it out of this heat is I gotta get on some of the best waves. And so I'm jetting into the lineup, and I noticed like nobody else was paddling. So I was like, dude, I don't
You
know.
guys are blowing it.
Yeah, you guys are blowing it. So, anyways, like it was, I probably caught one wave before the rest of the lineup came in, and had a pretty good heat. But then I came in and found out I got interference. So, yeah, one and done.
First to last.
But that was my first trip to Hawaii, so it's kind of cool. Like,
Who chaperoned, or did your mom take you, or did you go with a crew?
so I went with a crew. Went with like the WSA, like all-star kind of
Yeah.
crew. And there was another guy. So at that point, I was riding for Mountain Sands, and then I was riding for Stewart. So again, I moved to
BC
South End
and
of
Stewart.
Dude,
town.
you went from
Dude, I was all over the
Irby
place.
to
Yeah.
BC, now to Stewart. You're
So,
ruining your name
Dude,
all
I
over
was
town.
like, change is good. Like, try to get a little more every time you move around. But
Yeah.
so I was riding Stewart surfboards now because again I moved to South End of town, and so I went over there with a buddy. My parents didn't go, so it was like kind of a chaperone deal with a buddy of mine who was also riding for Stewart. This guy Eric Adolph. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but
Go.
so Eric, like he's actually kind of a big part of the San Clemente Board Riders.
Mm.
He's like the team captain for the Legends
Nice.
division. And so Eric, for me, like he was a couple years older, and he was one of those guys that kind of takes you under his wing and wasn't a dick, like actually kind of cool, like older kind of role model. And before I was able to drive, he was kind of one of those guys that would take me surfing and like take me down to like Cottons and like introduce me to like surfing more variety around town.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, ended up going over there with him, and I think he was like, I don't know, 17. If I'm 14, he was probably, actually he's probably 18.
Wow.
So yeah, and they put you up. It's kind of a package deal, you're in a hotel, and I remember I was rooming with a couple of flirting dudes, so kind of met those guys. We're all like just right there, like Waikiki, like surfing El Moana every day, and like Kaisers and out there.
That was your first time
So
in
that's the first
Hawaii?
time, kind of, out
Was it your
there.
first surf trip, kind of?
Yeah, actually, it probably was first surf trip.
Yeah.
Outside of like just going up and down the coast of California.
Yeah. Did you ever make it down to Mexico?
So I
Baja?
made it, yeah, a little bit later. Yeah, so a couple Baja trips like later on. Actually with like Rick Yeomans. So
Nate's dad, or?
yeah, so Nate's dad was Rick Yeomans. He was a pastor, and so again, I'm in middle school, going to Christian school at that point with some of my friends, and so yeah, like Rick Yeomans had like all my friends and stuff would go to like his church.
Yeah.
So like Chad, just like the whole crew, we would always go to his church, and
So you're the good crew of dudes,
was with a good crew,
Yeah.
like Chad, like Ian, like all these guys, and so Rick kind of organized a surf trip down to Baja. He organized a couple. We did one to my first PSAA event was to Florida, Sebastian Inlet. Was with Rick and like Mike Lambrisi, Peter King. It's like a full crew.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a Florida trip, and then this Mexico trip, like he organized. We went down there, and he organized like some like surf contest. We were down in Mazatlan.
Oh wow, way down. Like,
Yeah.
not Baja, but like.
Yeah, well, we did like he would take us down to like K38.
But you knew there was an event down there, or just.
Yeah, so I
Kinda
don't know.
organized.
Like I don't remember. It was obviously a long time ago, but took like myself and like I think it was like Casey Curtis, Casey's brothers, like Dustin Curtis, and yeah, there's like a crew. Like Nate was too young at that point. Like I don't even remember Nate surfing yet. But like Benji, Severson, like yeah, just a little crew. He took us down there and we did this little contest in Mazatlan, and it was fun. It was like in front of this like disco place, like Valentino's Disco. Like that's what they would refer to the surf spot. It was like this left that broke off this little rock.
Disco.
Yeah, Valentino's Disco.
I know.
So yeah, I don't know if you've ever been down there, but yeah, so we did a little contest down there and kind of cruised around, like surfed different waves down there. I don't know, have you guys ever been down there?
I haven't surfed
I've never
Mazatlan.
done
No,
Mazatlan.
been to Puerto Vallarta and a bunch of other
Dude,
mainland.
there's some good waves. There was like Stoner's Island. We took a boat out to like Stoner's Island, like this little like right point break.
Yeah.
Super fun. And there's a place called Cannons. That's kind of like a little left point, breaks off this like break wall.
Mm-hmm.
It was super fun, but yeah, I went down to Mexico a couple times and Florida, like Hawaii for contests,
So-
Florida for contests.
Did you even do WS or NSSAs, or you stuck with WSAs and you talked about going to Sebastian for a PSAA?
So yeah, so this was now I think we're in high school and still with Maui Sun, Stewart, and Rick organized like Mike Lambrisi had a surf movie out. I can't remember what it's called.
It's a Christian one, right?
It was like Sunriders. Maybe?
Yeah,
Or
Sunrise.
Sunrise. So yeah, he's like yeah.
Gonna go do a tour?
And Peter King, Peter King
Yeah.
and Mike Lambrisi, they're kind of part of this group with, Rick Yeoman's, Nate Yeoman's dad, and so they're like, hey, we're gonna go do this little Florida tour, like tour the movie, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna organize this group and just send a bunch of people out there. And so Mike's like, well, yeah, there's a PSAA contest, let's do it around that. So ended up going with them. There was probably like a dozen of us. Like Jim Hogan was on that trip. My buddy I told you about Eric Gadoff, he was on that trip. Benji Severson. There's actually a photo that I saw circulating through Facebook. I had a picture of that.
Oh, cool.
That trip. And so yeah,
When you're a sophomore, junior,
were probably like either 8th grade or maybe a freshman.
oh wow, you're young.
Actually, yeah, probably freshman. Freshman in high school. And yeah, it's PSAA contest at Sebastian Inlet. And so we all entered it just kind of for fun, but I was like, yeah, I want to do this. And at that point I was like competing a lot and was kind of like, all right, fuck, let's give it a go, Try to
4-man heats.
see if I could
Pro.
be a pro,
Yeah.
That was, I think aspirationally, like that was the goal. And so,
In
yeah,
ninth grade, though, you're still pretty young.
it's pretty young. What's that, like 14?
Yeah.
14 years old.
14 years old.
Yeah, so we're over there and we're like going city to city, like showing this movie, and it's pretty cool, like hanging out with like Peter King back then,
Yeah.
and, like Mike Lambrisi and Jim
And
Hogan.
Lambrisi is
Dude, he was
already
the man.
he's probably three-time PS.
2 or 3 times, like
Yeah.
he was the man. He was winning like most of the events, so it was cool hanging out with him. And yeah, so the end of that tour was the PSAA contest, and so it was cool. Ended up like making it through a couple heats.
Sick.
I was like, fuck, this is sick. Like I remember my first heat was like Charlie Kuhn, who ended up winning that event,
Wow.
and like Todd Klein. And
Todd Klein.
He was a Grom.
Kleiny,
He was
yeah,
probably around your
he
age.
was Grom, yeah, we were same age. And like Paul Reinke and those guys, they were all in it. So I made it through, I think, 2 heats. And I was advancing with Charlie, who was like the local
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Him.
hierarchy, like
Yeah.
kind of running the point
Yeah.
out there. So
How were the waves?
The waves were super fun.
Super rippable wave.
Dude, I don't know if you guys ever surfed it back in
Yeah.
that time, you know? Like, what was that, like late 80s-ish? 80s? And, God, that wave was super fun, just super
It
wedgy.
didn't even need to be, like, you take off on a little, like, you know, thigh high, and then, you know, one turn in, now it's like shoulder high. Well, it depends on the swell, but, you know, it would just have this, like,
Yeah.
it had a
Just
lot of
come in,
energy.
hit that jetty, and then just bounce off it, and just like this super wedge. It was
Yeah.
like a slingshot. You drop in, it's just like,
But you didn't, like,
goofy too, right?
Yeah.
on goofy foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's backside for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. That's my kind of my first experience in professional
Pro
event.
contest. Yeah.
And so I was just stoked, like, you know, hey, made it through a couple of heats, and so, you know, hey, maybe there's hope,
Yeah.
you know?
But you're only
So-
14 years old.
Yeah, I was young, and yeah, so I just got super into, you know, surfing contests, and
Now, were you trying to get photos in mags too, or?
I mean, I was kind of more like the contest guy, you know, I was always super competitive, and, you know, if I didn't have like that super competitive gene, I probably wouldn't have gone anywhere. You know, I think like for me, I always kind of knew in the back of my mind, like my skill set was really not what was going to take me where I wanted to go. You know?
That's good to know.
Yeah, so I, you know, I was like, you know, pretty like opportunistic, but I was also very real. Like,
Yeah.
you know, growing up in San Luis, you know, fuck.
well, there's guys you're
I'm watching
competing
guys that
against
are, like-
and serving with all the time, and you're like,
Yeah, you.
different
you're-
levels.
I knew, you know, kind of what that caliber where you needed to be, and what you know, how good you need to be,
Yeah.
how far that could take you. But you know, I was kind of like that guy. Like I made finals a lot, well, pretty much every contest, but I was never the guy winning those contests. And I remember at one of these like WCA All-Star banquets, we had like PT and Ian Cairns. I remember it to this day. Those guys were speakers, and we're all there as a group, and those guys were very like straightforward. Like, hey, if you're not winning events, you're probably not going to make it as a professional surfer.
Wow.
And I was like, that stuck with me. And so I always remember, like, fuck, if I'm not going to win this event, I might not be a pro surfer.
Yeah.
You know, but I was going to enjoy the ride and take it as far as I could.
Yeah.
That was always the goal.
So how long did you compete in amateur surfing?
So I would say from here, you know, high school.
Was there a high school surf team then, for sure?
High school surf
And
team.
You're doing that?
Yeah, I was doing
You
that.
went to San Clemente High
I
School?
went to San Clemente High School.
Okay.
Didn't make the surf team my freshman year because I only took 2 freshmen. And
No,
so,
no matter what?
Yeah, that was it.
Wow.
Dude, that fucking team was so stacked. I mean, imagine like you had the McNulty's,
Yeah.
you know, Beshin,
And 2 freshmen is it.
2 freshmen was it. So it was Chad, made it, and this other guy, can't remember his name.
That's
Barely a contest surfer, made it. And so we had like my grade, like there was a pretty solid amount of
Talent.
depth, you know, that grade. So once we got into sophomore years, then it was like we had like probably 10 people in our grade that was on the surf team.
Yeah.
How were you in school? Were you a good student? Were you studious, or did you just kind of scrape by, or like what
I
was
mean,
your
school, like I got good grades. I wouldn't say I was one of those elite students. You know, I would show up. To me, school was more about
Chicks.
social status for sure. I mean, that was my social setting. You know, go like hang out with my friends, and like that's where you're hanging out with your chicks, and you know, trying to figure out
It's about to find out where the parties
what
are.
are we doing this weekend.
Friday,
Yeah,
Saturday
you
night.
know, like FOMO. You don't want to miss out on a day, and like you know, like same with me. Like girls are pretty.
High school.
You know,
It's-
you're in high school, and like
That's like the time of your life, you know? Like,
for sure.
so,
But I did get good grades. You know, like you know, I did my homework.
But there wasn't like the pressure from mom or like
No.
your family, like, hey, you need to get straight A's, you got to go to
No
college,
way.
and you got to have this. It was
No.
kind of like just
what did your mom do for a living?
So she was, God, man, like, she worked for like financial corporations, like, she worked for like CPAs and kind of doing like the back end work for for like CPAs and stuff,
Bookkeeping.
bookkeeping
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So she did a lot of that. So she was always working like 8 to 5. So for me, like I grew up like I was just a latchkey kid. I had a lot of freedom as a kid.
Yeah.
Especially once I got 16 and
Yeah.
I had a car, and I was just like.
So what was your first job?
So my first job was actually at Stewart's.
Stewart.
Yeah.
Sick.
Got hired by Dean Reynolds. I think Dean, not Dan. It's Dean Reynolds and like Rick Petrie.
Like work at the shop
Rick
floor.
Petrie worked it.
Petrie, dude.
Stewart?
Petrie ran the retail operation, and then Dean was more like the kind of surfboard operation.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would go in there and I was like screen printing t-shirts.
That's what you did?
That's what I did.
So-
Whoa.
Yeah.
No experience. They brought you in. And were like, hey, we're going to show you the ropes of
Yeah,
that
I was
pattern.
riding for him at that time.
Were you hanging out? Like, was that your
It
like
was
hanging out?
just like a summer job, That was
No,
it.
but like a surf shop. Like, was that your
Yeah.
sponsor? Were you like,
Did you guys
so I was
hang in
getting
the shop?
surfboards.
like to go watch whatever videos are playing in the store, or just go?
I mean, I was
check
screen
out
printing,
gear?
worked the retail floor a little bit. That was, this is like high school, but it was mostly during the summer.
Yeah.
So like school, when it was during the school year, I was just doing school, and then weekends I was doing contests. every
Yeah,
weekend.
cush setup you had over here, man.
But like when Jay was young, he would hang out at Robert August or Tucked In or where would you go hang out? All kinds of different shops, right?
Yeah, but I would.
And watch surf videos and like.
Yeah.
But I would like clean, wax off used boards. I would polish the boards because people would come in and touch them all and they get dirty, and I would pledge and polish because they're all gloss coats back then. I'd vacuum. I do all kind, whatever, trash.
Yeah.
And they'd buy me, George Lambert, who ran the shop, would buy me lunch. He'd be like, hey, you do this, do that. He's sitting behind the counter flirting with chicks and doing all that, and I'm like the guy,
Grunt work.
grunt work because I'm a grunt.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you do all this, and I'll buy you lunch. And you open the cash register, and okay,
Did you guys
go hook us
hang
up.
out at the surf shop? Like, was that
Yeah.
your hangout?
So
Shit.
So I lived, by that kind of south end of town. So Rip Curl, which is still there today. So Rip Curl,
Wow,
kinda
they've
go
been
down
around
there.
that long. Huh?
Yeah.
Dude, they've been there forever. Yeah, I mean, go there, get your Rip Curl wetsuits and your freaking channel and surfboards, and that was kind of the place. So they were always running surf videos, so I'd go there and like watch surf videos and do that, and like Stewart's too. But once I got a car and was driving, then I was told like, all right, you need to get a job. Like you're cut off. So get a job, get some responsibilities, at least for the summer. So that was one thing. Like my mom was always cool, and my dad was always really good about making sure like financially we were good. Was always able to like, have the shit that I wanted, get things that I needed or whatever. So even though, single mom, raising a kid in Southern California, even back then,
Oh, for sure.
always kind of made sure like
So
financially
expensive.
like we were good. So that was cool. Even though it wasn't there so much like physically, mentally, at least he made sure like my mom could
Didn't struggle.
support me. Yeah, so we were always pretty good there, but
So silk screening in
so
the
I'm
summer,
like, silk screening, t-shirts.
which is kind of like not a job you give a grom, like just starting out. Like
Yeah.
that seems like it takes a little bit more of a learning
got
skill,
thrown,
learning
that's what I
curve.
was doing right away. And then when we were, kind of caught up there, or whatever, there was no more t-shirts, then they throw me on the floor and, like sell wax or whatever, surfboards, and kind of work the retail floor a little bit. So
Isn't like for me, I feel like retail is, and I hate to say the word retail, but that job of like interacting with people is so good for a young mind, to develop that social skill of like interacting with strangers and
I mean, yeah, you got the.
Sure.
I mean, 100% the social aspect of it, but also like learning the mechanics of cash registers and receipts and like money and like what things cost and like there's a lot of other subtleties to that, but the main thing is hey, you gotta make sure nobody's stealing and ring up people when they want to buy something. But you know what I mean? There's a lot of other
No, working
Shit, you're
retail
learning.
is a great
Yeah.
introduction to the real world.
Yeah, at that point, you know, I never really knew at that point, like, there was going to be a career for me in
Yeah.
the surf industry. You know, I was just doing this to get a paycheck, make sure I could put gas in my car.
I surf. I know what wax to fucking put on your board today, bro. You,
Yeah,
you,
just
you want
be
the
social.
cool water, dude, and you want the base coat, and you know, you have
Petrie was my boss, and like, he was
Upselling.
See,
super
that is
cool.
so funny, dude.
Yeah, here's a Grom too, you know, like back then. So
Yeah.
So, you know, I got that, you know, doing surf team, high school, you know, I think we knocked out like 2 state championships while I was there.
Ooh.
So
Beat Huntington?
I think we beat Huntington, so I was there for 2. My senior year, which was 91, we were state champs. And then 89.
We got to go back to the tapes on that.
I
I'm
think you
just
guys,
kidding.
guys were 90. I think
Yeah.
you guys knocked us out in 90, which 90
Laura,
dude,
where were you there?
I was a freshman in
a
90.
freshman.
Yeah,
Okay.
through 90.
Dude, it's always
Not on your watch.
It's
huh?
always San Clemente or Huntington. You know,
Not on your
state
watch,
champs.
right, Laura?
Yeah.
I think I remember Sandy Guido
Yeah.
had a good little run there for a minute. 'cause
Yeah,
that's-
San
Rob.
Diego?
Rob.
Yeah, it's Machado. So,
Did
but,
they win?
I don't think they won.
No.
I think they just were really like.
Yeah,
competitive?
competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd meet either San Clemente or HB in the semis and get bounced.
Has anybody else won besides
Yeah, I
HB
think
or
it's-
San Clemente?
Who else in Southern California is going to take Huntington or San Clemente?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah.
I don't.
Who else in the state of California is going to take San Clemente? Maybe Santa Cruz. You know, but those 3 communities, like you
Yeah.
can't.
But they, you know, in the high school level, it was regional, and you were never gonna compete against.
Go that far north.
Yeah.
But we definitely
We surfed
remember
against.
HB.
You know.
HB was gnarly, dude. Fucking
Yeah.
Jeff and
Yeah.
Bob brothers,
Yeah.
both Jeff and Barry.
Barry
Mhm.
rips.
Rips.
Yeah, we had
Fucking CC.
CC, Tim Brandon,
Dude, bring it back.
yeah,
You
Mark,
must come back.
Mark and Paul Austin. Paul was a little older,
Austin,
but Mark.
So
I
Austin's
mean,
actually one of my good
like,
buddies.
okay, just
He lives down in San Clemente.
Yeah, so
right?
he's San Clemente transplant.
Yeah.
in our little era,
Like,
like
man.
Mark Austin, Barry, and
Real
Jeff.
Reef.
Yeah,
Who?
Real to Reef is his
Yeah.
Instagram handle.
who?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Austin.
Aussie's a little older. He was like, I think he's like a year or 2 older than me.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing
But-
those guys.
But within, you know, that little like high school era, like that little window, Mark Austin,
Yeah.
men's national NSSA champ.
Yeah.
D-Ball, Barry. Barry was a national champ. Jeff.
Was he really?
Yeah. Jeff. Like, I was never a national champ. But
Of course not. We know that.
there was but there was
Uh,
a lot of other guys that were, I mean, really good surfers that never went on to be professional. But we had like just kind of like
Hotbed.
yeah, blue collar kind of workforce,
Hotbed.
like your group where you know you had guys.
Bobby the Lockhart.
Bobby the Lockhart, yeah. I mean the Keenans. I mean there was.
yeah.
I mean the Tices. I mean there's a lot of guys.
Kurt
that,
Tice, Lloyd Tice,
Yeah.
right?
Shane Starr.
See?
Yeah.
Same star. I mean,
but
KCB?
Lloyd Tice changed his name to
Yeah.
Shane Starr.
but we had.
no way.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember the name.
Yeah, but we had Nia Post, who pretty much dominated women's like
Yeah.
she, you know,
Remember her?
which was a big part of you know your team winning. You know,
Yeah.
you had a longboard back then and a boogie
Boogie
boarder
boarder.
and a
Yeah.
and a
Dude.
girl and Nia
Craig
crushed.
Etchigoyen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Craig Etchigoyen. Come on, talk
Yeah,
about
Craig-
that kid ripped. He was younger than us.
yeah, he was a year or so younger than me. Yeah, and
So-
definitely in the mix.
So you're in high school. You're
Yeah.
surfing contest.
Yeah.
Are you gonna turn pro? You're aspiring to be a
So-
pro. What was the?
So that was the goal. That was definitely the goal. You know,
Still Now and
freshman-
Sons, the whole
What's
year. Now and Sons, the whole.
No, so again, pretty much changed like every year. So I think freshman, sophomore, Maui Sons, you know, had a good little run there. But then I think it was like sophomore, junior, then I moved over to Gotcha.
Ooh,
Yeah, big move.
big time.
move. Yeah, so
Kirkshank.
Kirk Shank linked up with him somehow. I don't remember how it happened. But we linked up somewhere at WCA's, and yeah, I think I was like kind of one of like the only like kind of younger San Clemente groms. You know, you had like Creek and San Diego. You know, like Dino, Archie were gotcha guys.
Yeah.
But then like the rest of the kind of younger crew, nobody really in San Clemente. So
And
back
gotcha
then,
was the shit.
dude, gotcha was
The shit.
that shit.
Yeah.
That shit for sure.
Yeah.
So-
Vinny was gotcha, right? But he's like Salt Creek.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
So
Yeah.
he was like Dana Point.
Yeah.
You know, like growing up, high school years, like that's who we competed against. It was like San Clemente versus Dana Point, which had an insane team. You know, Vinny, Pat O'Connell, Casey Curtis. You know, and then you had like Capo Valley, who was like your San Juan kind of Mission Viejo crew, which was like Shane Stoneman, Chris Drummy, Mark Lindblad.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mark Lindblad, I remember that name.
Brett Birch. They had a good little team too. So it was like those three teams, like we competed against each other.
Yeah.
We always won, but Dana gave us a good push, you know, like Pat, Casey, Vinny. Like those guys are gnarly, and then there were some younger guys too, Beanie Brothers, and but anyways, yeah. So linked up with Gotcha, and that was sick, you know. 1 year was Gotcha, and then out of nowhere, I get this box that shows up, and I'm opening it. I remember it was like the summer, and I'm pulling stuff out, and it's got this MCD logo on it. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I just get this letter from Mike Cruikshank, and it was just like, hey Sean, you know, MCD, this is like a new division
Yeah.
for Gotcha. And he's like, I'm moving you over to this division.
Since you like Archie so much, we thought we'd pair you up on MCD.
I mean, and that's the thing too, like my communication with Cruikshank was basically letters.
Yeah.
You know, like
Wow.
we didn't have a lot of like phone communication. You know, back then there was no cell phones.
Yeah.
So it's like if you call me, you're pretty much just leaving a message on the answering machine. You know, so I was like,
Interesting.
or I didn't really see him at events too. Like I don't remember seeing him down at events very often back then. And so it was kind of weird, like just not a lot of communication.
Yeah.
But there'd be a box that would show up in my house every month. And so that one was pretty rad. You know, I opened it up and it's all this MCD gear and like stickers and
More core division.
It is.
And I didn't know
So great.
what this was. I was like, fuck, you know, kind
So
of
big.
tripping
Yeah.
at first because didn't know anything about it. And I was like, you know, Gotcha was so rad.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. So there was like a video too that came with it. And it was like this Martin Potter video, like Strange Thing.
Strange Desire.
Oh,
Strange Desire.
Yeah.
That was it.
One of the best videos out there.
Dude,
Yeah.
it was insane, and I would watch that thing like day and night, endless. So I was doing that, you know. So I was on that program for a little bit, and it was cool. I think it was my junior year. I went to Florida for nationals, and like Gotcha paid the whole trip, so that was cool. When myself and Chad was riding for Billabong. I was on Gotcha, and like Chad, you know, like best friend, and you know, we go to contests together, and
Sebastian Inlet.
Sebastian Inlet. So we go over there, and so I don't know if you guys remember this, but Danny Mojado.
Yeah.
You guys remember that name?
Definitely.
So Danny came to San Clemente our junior year, and he was a San Clemente guy. So he was living in San Clemente. Went to San Clemente High School with us our junior and senior year. So again, I think
I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
yeah. So he was there, you know, right for Billabong, and him and Chad were living with. Do you guys know Terry Strump?
Yeah.
That name ring a bell?
Strump,
Strump.
definitely, yeah. He
Terry
works for
Strump.
Billabong.
Worked for Billabong for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was with us at Arnette. I mean, shit, we haven't even got to like career stuff yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are we in time? We good? So anyways.
We're an hour and a half in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
He's living it up. He's like, wow, yeah, this amateur.
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's good.
Just trying to stick to the timeline, but so Danny is living in San Clemente, so he hooks us up with Paul Reineke. So it's like Rhino and Todd Morcom and like that crew, Kleiny, like that was like, you know,
The cool of the.
that was like
Yeah.
the kind of ripping, you know, crew back then, like for that age group. And so we all went to Florida that summer for nationals, and we stayed at Paul Reineke's house, and Danny was there and had a killer time. The waves sucked. I mean, it was literally like lapping on shore.
Yeah, I lost first season that event.
So you're probably there.
I was there. Yeah.
Sucked, you know.
The best highlights was trying to free surf, standing in like thigh deep water, and then getting yelled at by the fishermen on the pier. Not at Sebastian, but practicing at whatever beach. And they lift their lines and they're yelling, and then everybody gets out of the water, and the sharks are chasing the fish down the coast, and then they pass, and then we paddle back out. And I'm like, what the fuck? Wait, we just saw a bunch of sharks. They're all fine. They're chasing the fish. I'm
Are
like,
they bull sharks too?
I don't know if it's bull sharks, but it was just like,
Spinners or something.
yeah, they're just like, hey, you know, like they chase the schools, they just go down, they just chase them down the beach, and then they're gone. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, tripping. Just sharks, you know, like we're used to like sharks that will take a limb, you know.
Yeah.
that, and they put you in this hotel, in the pool, and I don't hope they never design pool or hotels like this. Inside pool, inside
Inside the building. Uh-huh.
and it was like an atrium, and all the rooms and everything
Face the pool.
were inside. Like the pool was like the focal point, like the courtyard.
Yeah.
And everybody was like bombing off second, third, fourth floors into the pool. Like it was fucking. You had
What?
150
Gronk.
kids from all over America come into Florida for this contest, and that's where they put you up. It was chaos.
Pandemonium.
Yeah, and I was like, somebody's gonna die.
So-
you know?
That's crazy. Yeah, we didn't stay at that hotel. We ended up staying at Reinke's.
Because you're in the cool group.
we got hooked up for sure, and like, I mean, that was crazy. Like Reineke, like his whole like circle of friends, it was like parties every fucking night.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nuts.
They're the good old boys.
Parents were gone. Like, I was.
Yeah, because Morgan was pretty gnarly, right?
Morgan,
Super gnarly.
Morgan was hanging out. Kleiny, he
Yeah.
was there every day.
Sean
hanging out.
Sutton, he was another gnarly like.
He's
Florida-
Hawaiian though.
Or no, he was Hawaiian, huh?
Yeah.
But he was always at all those events too.
I remember like.
I just remember like Mahado and Sutton and like I'm just thinking of names that were like always on the podium.
Yeah, so Mojado, that was cool. He came to San Clemente, and so Terry Strumpf. So I'm jumping around. Anyways, Florida. You know, we go out there, did that event. Waves sucked, but it was, you know, it's cool to like kind of hook up with like some of that Florida crew, and you know, we're all kind of same age, and you know, Slater. I think he made an appearance at Rhino's house one night, hanging out partying. I think he actually brought Lisa Anderson. We don't need to get into that, but anyways, so that was cool. And then, you know, kind of going back to like high school and how everything was evolving and surfing. And so Terry ended up, he was living in San Clemente. He was married at the time, had this big house in San Clemente. I think he was running Rip Curl when Rip Curl was being run out of Oceanside.
Mm.
So at that time, Danny moved out. He was living with Terry Strumpf, and Chad ended up moving in there and was living there too. He had this big house and no kids, just him and his wife at the time. And then, so yeah, like Danny was a great addition to like San Clemente surf team. And then our senior year, Conan Hayes
Conan Hayes?
fucking moves into San Clemente, and he was a junior, so he was a year younger than us.
He moved into San Clemente
So
too.
he came to San Clemente. He was there for a year too. Yeah, he was riding for Billabong, and he was living with Terry Strumpf. So I mean, we're kind of like myself and like Enoch and Eric. Like we're always hanging out now over Terry's house, and that was kind of like our hangout spot. And Terry would take us all surfing, and so anyways, was kind of just hanging out with that crew. Like that was a crew. And so going to contests every weekend, Chad, Danny, our surf team, we were just fucking annihilating people because we had Conan too. So it was just like,
That is crazy. I never even remember that.
yeah, so it's cool, like hanging out with those guys. And
Because I met Conan at 15. I was on a trip with Dan Bilak, one of my friends. Parents were loaded, and he was an only child. And they're like, "Oh, we're going to Hawaii. Or we're going to college." Wherever they went, he got to bring a friend or two. So I'm 15, maybe 14, 15, and we're just running amok in Waikiki. And we run into this little kid, and he's living in the summers on his uncle's boat in Ala Moana Harbor. He's like, "Yeah, I'm from the Big Island, and you know, like I'm just living on my uncle's boat." And that's how that was the first time I met him before we, you know, met up in contests and stuff. So maybe 14.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
yeah,
But that's weird. He went to San Clemente too.
Yeah.
I remember he was just kind of bouncing around a lot too.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what his,
He's still bouncing around, right?
I don't remember like what his parental situation was like, but
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, you know,
See-
17,
Yeah. Single mom, like
single mom, like
Big
he's
Island.
living at Terry's house in San Clemente. You know, parents I think were still in Hawaii.
yeah.
And
Not a lot going on in the Big Island. And if you want to be a pro surfer, you got to kind of like
Yeah, he
Figure
was
out-
already.
how to. I mean,
You gotta be a Shane Dorian or a Conan.
Dude, he was he was
Yeah.
already like that kid in the spotlight, ripping. You know, like he obviously, I think at that time too, like he was already getting paid for Billabong.
Wow.
I think Billabong was paying his rent at Terry's house. I remember seeing.
Yeah.
So, so we're doing that. You know, just competing, and so we get to senior year, and you know, like pressure's on. Like now you gotta
Figure out what you can do.
yeah, like, this is it. Like, you're either gonna do it or you're not gonna do it. So I was just competing a lot, and I was hanging out with contests. I think we kind of moved over now. I was doing like the CSAs, and you know my friends were all doing CSAs. I think Billabong was sponsoring them back then. So like Chad, we were doing the CSAs now. And so I remember like Mark Reeder would always show up, and it was cool. Like,
Oh, now you're riding for Billabong.
okay, yeah. We'll get to that. So, you know, Reeder is at every contest, and obviously, you know, I'm hanging out with Mojado, rides for Billabong, Chad, rides for Billabong, Conan, rides for Billabong, and here I am, fucking gotcha guy, you know, kind of the outsider, but like that's my crew. And so, you know, Reeder's always cool. He's like taking us to lunch, and like we'd come up and stay at his house. I mean, he's just the raddest human.
Yeah.
You know, probably the best team manager, you know, to this day. You know, just very welcoming. Here we are, just like Groms, you know, like just showing up at his house, and he's married, and you know, has his own life, but always like take us in. We stay at his house, and we do contests in Huntington, and he'd take us around, like, you know, takes us to dinner. I think he even took us to a TSOL concert one time.
Oh, for sure.
Which was insane too. But so yeah, you know, starting to get to kind of know Mark a bit, and you know, we're all at a contest. It's at Southside HB, and we all bailed. Finals day is Sunday, right? And we all jammed to go grab some food. Come back, and my finals on the water, you know, to like Chad and Danny, they were older, so they were in the older division. I think I was like juniors, and they might have been like junior men's, something like that. I was like, what is that, like 16 and 17, and it was like 18 and up for those guys. So anyways, my heat's been in the water for 5 minutes or whatever, and they're like, dude,
You're late.
water, like change and get out there. So quick change, get in the water. Probably had like, you know, 10 minutes left, and the waves weren't that good. Thankfully, you know, it's just kind of like wind blown afternoon, Huntington, and caught 3 waves, like pretty decent waves, and came in and ended up winning it. And so Reeder's like, he's like, hey man, good job. Like, you know, sorry you were late. And you know, kind of hung out. We went to dinner later, and you know, him and Chad were super tight. And so like that next day, Chad's like, dude, Reeder was like
Sight on you.
psyched on you. He's like saying, you know, if you ever wanted to leave Gotcha, welcomed me with open arms. And I'm like,
Call
I'm like, fuck, let's do this, you know, because again, like I didn't really have a relationship with the
Coaching,
crew,
yeah.
you know, like communication was done in letters and like I just
Yeah.
a box and so Reader was just like super rad,
Yeah.
you know, like that's the guy you want to hang out with,
Yeah.
and that's the guy that you know he's going to take care of you. So I looked at him like, okay, that's a good move. He's going to look out for my future. So even though I kind of felt like it was a little weird because now I'm like, you know, you got Chad, you got Danny, we're all like this Sinkelman kind of groms, and like, how do I really fit in? But I didn't really care. I was like,
Yeah.
let's go. And so then my senior year, ran for Billabong, and that was insane. Had a good little run, you know, won some contests and felt like, you know, maybe there's a chance, you know, give this thing a crack. And so graduated and then started doing some of the PSAA events.
Have you ever done a PSA since Sebastian?
So I had,
No.
that
So
was it. So I was
14, now you're 17,
Now
18,
I'm like
and,
17, 18 years old.
and you haven't even tried to crack one in the West Coast, and there's quite a few at that time.
Yeah, so then that was like the next step. And so Reader was all about it. He's just like, yeah, let's get you guys going. And again, you know, I had like Chad was there and like Danny. So we
And
were
to
all-
let our listeners know, it wasn't like, you know, the Pro-Am, I mean, Bud Tour, PSA, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really big deal. But from the expense side of it, you know, like the cost
for the circuit.
entry, the
For the
paying the
competitor.
membership,
Yeah.
Yeah.
versus like NSCA at the time, it wasn't that much more.
Yeah.
You know,
It
so
didn't
it
cost a lot.
Did you get that?
but you
Round
know,
two?
Shoots.
but for them to allow you to do, you know, enter as an amateur, and you were able to, you know, it was like a kind of a no-brainer if you could pull it off. But it was during the week, like, you know, it would start on a Wednesday and on a Sunday, or vice versa, you know, whatever. You had to be able to like skip school to
Yeah.
compete, which
Sure.
was kind of a big deal breaker for young kids.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it's just way more accessible to.
Like, we weren't homeschooled, and
To like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother, you know, sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, so started doing some of the PSAAs. You know, I remember a couple, like, there was Malibu, there was, I think there was a Creek one. I remember Boothie won it. There
yeah, the
was,
surf battle, that was the big one.
yeah,
Boothie
that
won.
was a big one. Vinny. There was Imperial Beach.
Yeah.
Pismo.
Yeah.
Pismo was a good one.
There was
How are you doing?
Pismo,
So
there
I was
was
doing, like,
Seaside, Oceanside,
Yep.
Huntington,
Dude, they were all over.
Malibu,
Yep.
How
Pismo.
are you
Santa-
doing?
So I tended to do okay, like in the ones that were more beach break. So Imperial Beach, I remember I made it through a couple rounds, like before the quarters. So I was like kind of stoked on that, you know. And then Pismo, I think I made it through like maybe 2 heats. But other than that, never got further
Past
than that. There was a pro-am event I did in Newport. Newport Beach, like 56th or 54th, that I made the quarters. And I can't remember if that was a PSAA or
It
if
was,
that was just something else. Newport
no,
Pro-Am.
Yeah.
God,
Surfside takes, I
And
think,
Surfside was a
I'm
part of it.
it is now, at least.
no, it was, there was another series that was like a Pro-Am series. That was,
CBA?
No.
Remember that
I'm
one?
drawing a blank. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know. But anyways,
Scott
Nathan-
Waring ran.
Yeah, I don't remember what he did.
And it was, there was an event at Blackie's, 56, I think a couple in Huntington. It was more of like a SoCal, not,
separate series.
Yeah.
It wasn't PSAA.
no, but it was a Pro-Am. Anyways,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so anyways, I ended up making the quarters there, and that was the first time like I ended up winning like some prize money.
Nice.
Don't remember how much it was, but yeah, so I don't know. At that point, you know, I'm like a year.
And
out
your
of
work
school.
experience consists of just
Dude,
shop,
retail.
retail, and maybe silkscreen a little bit, and
Yeah, so it was, you know, there wasn't like Billabong was Reader was like paying for the contest, And so like that was his commitment, maybe a little travel budget. But then, so now we start getting into like, I'm 18, 19, and
Go to college?
I did take some courses at Saddleback. I took a health class and a business class with Chad and Danny, which is funny. You know, we all fucking signed up for the same thing, did the same thing. You know, kind of have that plan B, you know, just in case. But it didn't work out real well because, you know, we were still surfing, we were traveling, doing these contests, which again, Wednesday to Sunday, so you're missing classes, and eventually that kind of faded out. But so now we're kind of getting into, you know, question mark.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Like, is
It's a
this
fork in the
actually-
road.
Is this actually something that I can continue to do and pursue? And while, you know, the right side of the brain's like, yes, go. You know, you gotta fucking gotta go for it. You know, the other side was like, okay, what's plan B?
Yeah.
So anyways, we get into graduate from high school in 91, so now we're probably like 92. And now you get this like thing like Scott Farnsworth moves into town, right?
Oh.
So at the same time, there's this whole thing where, oh, there's this new sunglass brand being started in San Clemente. It's called Arnette.
And Farney's Oakley.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's really interesting how these two kind of things happen at the same time. So the Billabong thing ended because, as you guys probably remember, Reader bailed, took a plumbing job up in Idaho, moved
Yep.
up there, started a family,
Yep.
and then Paul Gomez comes in and runs the team. And, you know, Gomez is smart. I didn't know him at all. Chad knew him actually pretty well. And so he just was like, hey, I need Chad, I don't need Sean.
Yeah.
And so that was just an easy out. So he gave me the boot. So there's really no more like real sponsorship support. So then you got Farney, HB guy, right?
Yeah.
Farney's HB guy.
Oakley guy.
Oakley guy.
Yeah.
Corporate Oakley guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was like, I don't know, VP of sports marketing.
Yeah.
And so it's just weird. Like one day, I started seeing Farney out at T Street, and you know, he's kind of rapping out, knows everybody. He knows like the crew, like Bashan and Chad and everybody, and Morrow. And so he shows up, and all of a sudden, I start seeing him in the lineup more, which is super weird. And all of a sudden, he's living in San Clemente, and I just remember like he's out there all the time and basically just throwing Oakley contracts
In the water.
at pretty much everybody who can pretty much surf.
Yeah.
And I just remember, you know, I turned around and like everybody's riding for Oakley. And interesting timing, right? Because then at the same time you got Arnette, Greg Arnette is forming this new sunglass brand right in San Clemente.
Yeah.
And so if you guys know kind of the history there.
Arnette comes from Oakley.
So Greg Arnette was like a head designer.
And Farney has some privy of that, and he's locking up everybody he could.
Dude,
because they
he
got
can't
the
even-
deep
You
pockets.
think though that
You got the deep
Oakley
pockets.
put Farney in San
Hell,
Clemente?
yes.
Really?
100%. I watched it happen. I watched it happen firsthand. I mean, Farney shows up out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he's like a staple in the lineup at T Street. He's throwing contracts at everyone. It was
It's
full
not like
block and tackle move.
Arnett, like,
Dude,
it's ground
that's
zero.
conspiracy theory.
It's ground
No.
zero. I
think
totally
it was because
Sean
nobody,
Flers Fleuriau is throwing out conspiracy theory right here.
I think we all knew it. Just nobody really came out and said it.
Okay.
You know.
That's funny.
Get Farney on
Yeah.
the
If
phone,
that's
dude.
Hey.
no, we should.
Let's call him.
Hey,
yeah, we
Let's
will.
call him.
Well, look at the depth they went and, you know, funded Dragon at the same time or shortly after. Like, there's definitely some
Oh, there was
collusion.
strategy, dude.
some crazy,
There was
like back
strategy.
end
Which-
strategy. Yeah.
I'll tell you guys firsthand as we get into this.
But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
well, let's.
It's okay. It's pretty crazy though that Oakley would go to that great length of putting their marketing guy in the heart of Arnette country, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes sense, but
Great move.
doesn't make sense.
Farney, we need to get you on this to
That's
confirm.
funny.
And,
So okay, go.
And of course, like everyone in the surf community, like respects Farney.
of
Yeah.
course.
You know, he shows up and everybody's
Tour
like,
surfer,
"Oh, this guy's-
freaking rips.
Farney's the man.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's very likable, you know, and
So Farney's out in the water propagating Oakley, right? He's promoting Oakley, getting kids riding for Oakley, and you're sitting there
he's
watching
getting
it.
ahead of it.
Yeah. So Arnette is happening.
So Arnette is like, at that point, it was just, you're hearing about it, you know, and like, there wasn't, I don't think there was much of a basis out there yet. You're just kind of hearing it, maybe like some stickers or, you know, I knew at that point, like Chris Burke, he was a part of it. And so you have Big B running around town, hyping it up and promoting it. So now it's like you got two big industry dudes. You got Farney and you got Chris Burke. And those guys are both in San Clemente. And Farney kind of came in and beat him to the punch because everyone's under contract now with Oakley. And so that was, I think, it was a full block and tackle move.
Wow.
You know, it was very smart. And I look back at that, kind of knew it was happening at the point, but now you look back and like, wow, those guys are, you know, getting ahead of it.
Yeah.
So, because again, when you look back at those times, like Greg Arnette, he came from Oakley, he was a head designer, and so the story that was told to me was Greg left Oakley at a time when he just didn't really like the direction Oakley was going with their designs. And if you think about it, Jay probably remember some of the stuff.
He went
Shocked
for
me.
Oakley.
For many years.
and you know, it's like there's no Oakley sticker on your board. It's HDO.
Yeah.
High definition
optics.
And I remember like so
Thermonuclear, what was it?
protection.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
freaking technology. Just
Yeah.
But there were them and Quicksilver, who were obviously the big corporate guys at that time, had specific like team logos versus
yeah.
versus a lot of the other brands. I mean, back in the day, you would see actually the logo in team like in the '80s, and then it kind of like just
Instead
gravitated
of team,
towards.
it was a different logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So anyways, this is all kind of happening, and so like Farney comes in. I got a nice little like Oakley contract. I think it was for like a year.
you did.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it was kind of like, you know, maybe give me a little like last ditch of hope to continue to try to compete. And like there was, you know, he was paying for a contest, and that was kind of all I had for support was him. So he was paying for contests, and there was like a little budget in there. I think it was like $200 a month, and I was supposed to pay for contests. So that's happening, you know. So Oakley's making this big push in town, and then on the other side you have Arnette forming this like new brand. And so like I was saying, like, you know, Greg was a head designer at Oakley
Yep.
at a time when he just wasn't really supportive of the direction they were taking their sunglasses. It was very futuristic. If you remember, like
Yep.
Sub-Zeros.
Yeah.
Remember the Sub-Zeros?
X-Metal,
The Zeros?
Sub-Zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, dude.
Laura wore it
Ah.
all.
yeah.
Or
had it
because
all.
you had to,
Yeah.
not because you wanted to. Like I felt
Oh, he
embarrassed.
wanted to though.
I love the blades
I doubt it.
and the flex.
So the blades were cool and the frog
Yeah.
skins. Like that's what you wanted to wear.
Yeah.
Laura always went to the beach with that one that went like this.
Oh, dude, the face.
No, I did not. But yeah.
I can't remember what that thing was called.
What were those called?
I don't know.
Dude, but like
What happened?
Sub-Zeros and the Zeros.
But
Google those things. They
Yeah.
were.
But they
way
wanted to be the new
X-Metals.
Nike. Yeah, the new Nike, you know,
Yeah.
of, you know,
I mean, they were just
eyewear.
taking
So you
designs.
rode for Oakley,
So
which
started
is
riding for Oakley.
okay.
Right when the Arnette thing was
Percolate.
starting to
Yeah.
kind of come to surface.
Yeah.
And again, it was just like hearsay. Didn't really know too much about it, but we just know like this guy Greg Arnette, who also, you know, came from the surf industry, owned
And
a surf shop,
and your
good
area.
surfer.
Yeah.
Fucking puts that thing right in the backyard.
But he orchestrates a all-star team based on who he is, you know?
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of starts out And so then all of a sudden I'm seeing like Chris Burke around town, and he's trying to like kind of counterpunch Farney.
Yeah.
So, you know, Chris is in the lineup, like, you know, promoting Arnette and just trying to pick up anyone that had like, you know, signed a deal with Farney. So that's going on. You're kind of seeing it both happen, like right in front of your face. And so anyways, you know, I'm still surfing, still competing. And, you know, I think a turning point for me in my life, especially my career, takes me to Ocean Beach, San Francisco. It's a PSAA event. And I'm heading up there with Farney. He's taking Chad and myself. We're driving up. I think we stopped in Santa Cruz for like a couple days to hang out with Homer. Henard.
Yes.
Kind of, you know, did a couple days.
Stylist, barber extraordinaire.
Barber, fucking good surfer.
With a surf dog,
With
right?
the surfer dog.
East Side
Yeah.
guy, you know. And then we head up to San Francisco, and you know we're up there for the event, and I just remember, you know, hanging with Farney, and like Farney does everything first class. You know, he's taking us out to like wine.
Damn
and
right, he's got the
dining.
Oakley freaking
Dude,
corporate
Oakley
card.
car, fucking driving up there in the Oakley truck, you know, puts us up in the killer hotel, like basically right on the water. Killer dinners, and you know, it's like it's kind of nice, you know,
Yeah.
getting a little bit
Get
of that.
pampered.
The
Getting
fluff.
pampered.
The
Yeah.
fluff and fold.
So then you got Chris Burke shows up, you know, he's up there like as the marketing guy for Arnette. Again, this thing's just kind of starting, and I think they had maybe one model, but it wasn't, I don't even know if it was really in the market yet. But you can kind of see it, like two brands going completely opposite directions. You know, Oakley's going very futuristic, and Arnette comes in with this just like fucking super sick vibe, like the coolest,
The
shit.
classic rap, like
Just
Yeah.
the classic rap,
yeah.
kind of, you know,
Black
Ray
Dog was the
Raz.
first one.
The
right?
Black Dog was the first model
Yeah.
that they put out.
Yeah.
And so I remember I saw him up there, and he was rocking them, and he was like kind of flowing. People classes like, oh my god, those things look so much fucking cooler than this shit I'm wearing.
And this is 93,
It's probably 92.
92.
This is in 92. So yeah, again, I'm like a year out of high school, just trying to figure out life, what to do, where to go. And yeah, so my first heat up there, Chris Burke's in my first heat.
Chris Burke's in your heat.
So yeah, he was still competing. Yeah, I mean, he's probably like 7, 8 years older than me. You know, he's like probably late 20s. And so yeah, he's still surfing good, but he's now the head marketing for Arnette.
Yeah.
And so he's in my heat, and you know, our heat come in. You know, Ocean Beach, like, you know, walking
Long
up
Beach.
the beach.
Yeah.
Huge tides.
Yeah. Huge
Yeah,
tides.
big tides, and so we're walking up the
Foggy,
beach together.
sketchy.
And I remember the conversation. You know, we're walking in together, and he lost. I made it through, and I just remember he's like Flers. He's like, man, when you gonna wrap this thing up? He's like, you know, I don't know. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know if you can do it. Like fully questioning the ability.
Wrap up your career and
As
Just
a
started
deal.
competing. He's like,
yeah.
yeah, just kind of like.
What do you say
messaging.
before you
Just
paddle
fully
out? Not
poking.
after.
This is after he
Okay,
after he
no.
just lost.
He lost, and you're
And I'm still
doing it.
advancing. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, why don't you come work for us? Why don't you come work for Arnette? He's like, why don't you know, start your career? And this is a conversation we're having as we're walking at the
Wow.
beach. Like I remember the conversation vividly because, you know, I was like, kind of felt like maybe there was a new pulsing competition for me, and had the support from Oakley and Farney, and then on the other side, like Chris, who I had a lot of history with and kind of grew up with,
Yeah.
looked up to. You know, he's already like kind of poking at me, like he's like, dude, just fucking get out of it, dude. Come work for us. Like this is your backyard.
And do
Like,
what?
Start your career.
Like,
talking like career, like get in this, you know. Like,
But this is
come
on
work.
a walk out of the water, out of a heat.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
so weird to have that kind
Yes.
of conversation.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
was super
So
weird.
so
And so I was just like, dude.
How'd you do the contest?
So I think I made it through one more heat and then was out. So again, like I'm looking at this thing too.
Yeah.
Like I
You see the writing on the
more-
wall.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
for me at that point, I was just
And
like,
that
how far can I
conversation,
really.
that conversation stuck in your head.
So that conversation was like, for me, it was very real.
Yeah.
You know, for me, like the wheels were starting to turn a little bit. Like maybe it's time to start looking at something different. And so, whatever, you know, he kind of just put that at me, and then you know, he's up there hanging at the event, and then we're hanging at the event. I didn't say anything to Farney, obviously, because we're all hanging out. Like, you know, Farney and Chris Burke, they were buddies too. So, but you can kind of see like there was now this divide that was starting to happen. So, anyways, come back to town, and I run into, or Big B, he's calling me. Like crazy calls me. He's like, hey, what do you think? Like, let's get you in here, dude. Come up, like, meet Arnie and the crew. Like, you'll be psyched.
And did you have any idea like what they're asking you to come be like your
Zero.
job? Like just
Zero. You know, this thing was like
we got this position open that's perfect.
no
for you.
position,
Not, like
no resume.
They're just
nothing.
trying to build their team.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
They're just trying to, like, I think bring some bodies in to kind of
whatever Oakley's paying you, will pay you half.
It wasn't even that. This
I'm
was
just kidding,
not.
but you know, like
This wasn't even like, hey, come surf for us. This was
Yeah.
like, come take a job
yeah.
and work with, like, you know, some of your friends. So like my buddy Enoch, he was already there. You know, Enoch was like one of the first people to start working there.
I think he's the fifth higher.
He was probably like first 5.
Yeah.
And so now I'm starting to think like, okay, this could be cool, because now I'm starting to really see it. Like, fuck, Arnette was a rad brand, and it was coming in with a lot of energy and just a totally different approach to the eyewear market. And I'm sitting here with these Oakleys that I was like almost embarrassed to wear.
Yeah.
Like anytime there was girls around, I would take them off. And so I was like,
Dollar.
yeah. I mean,
Cha-ching!
Laura was probably making a little bit more
Cha-ching.
money. You know?
I wear that flag all day long.
Hey,
How big of an L you want on the board?
yeah, I mean, there's probably an extra 0 on his paycheck to mine. You know, $200, he's probably making $2,000. Whatever. So, anyways, yeah. So he invites me up, and I walk into the office up there. It was in the business park in San Clemente, 927 Cali Negocio. I still remember that to this day. And they had one building. So I walk in, and there's Arnie. And Arnie was very, like, private. You know, he always ran his business. He was always very private, kind of had this, like, mystique to him. And so I go in there, and the first thing he says is, so what's up with you ride for Oakley? He's like, do you have a contract with Oakley? And I said, yes. He's like, okay. He's like, I can't do anything for you. But if and when you get out of it, come back and see me, and we can talk about giving you a job here.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay. I'm like, fuck, Big B, you could have, like, saved us both the hassle a little bit. So Big B's like, no, I just wanted you to meet him and
See the setup.
kind of just check it out, you know. And one of my other buddies was starting to work there too, so you can kind of see where it was going. Like, they were just bringing in, like, friends.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't about, like, what your resume looked like or how smart you were.
Well, your
What
friends
kind
are
of
already
education.
pumping you
I
up.
already had, like, 2 of my best friends that
Yeah. They're
were
vouching.
working there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Oh, Sean, he's awesome, dude. He's a cool dude. Like, you know.
well, yeah, you know, I knew a lot of, obviously growing up in San Clemente, like, kind of knew everybody already too. And, you know, kind of another story that we missed was the other guy that was there that was running the sales and kind of operation side was Bruce Beach.
Mm.
And so I knew Bruce a little bit because when I was like 14, funny story, Bruce actually, there was a contest I had to get to up in Pismo Beach, and that was like the last event for the season for my WCA, and I was ranked second. It was that year I finished second. It was the best, you know, my best result. And so my mom couldn't get me up to Pismo, but I had to be in this event or I was at risk of, like, falling out of the top 2 position.
Yeah.
And so somehow she called somebody in the WCA organization and she links me up with, or they linked us up with one of the judges that was driving up to the contest.
Nice.
And he's based in Huntington Beach. And so I just remember, I was 14, my mom drops me off at a 7-Eleven, and out walks Bruce Beach. So Bruce is my ride up to Pismo Beach for this contest. He's a judge, so I'm like, yeah, fuck, this is cool. And yeah, so that's how I first met Bruce. So we get up there, and we end up staying at his buddy's house, who lives in San Luis Obispo. And so we roll in, it's kind of late at night. No, it wasn't Cerny. So we roll up to this dude's house and fucking knock on the door. It's pretty late at night, probably like, close to midnight. And this fucking dude opens up the door, buck naked. I'm 14, just totally violated at this point. And it was fucking Kurt Fry.
Kurt Fry? Big C?
Big C.
Butt naked?
Butt naked.
Wow.
I was just like, whoa, what just happened? I was like, oh, okay, that was.
This is how it connects with you, multiple dudes that are not there.
Yeah. So again, like I'm a grown. I have no idea what my future is.
And all these guys are Arnette.
That I'm gonna eventually start working with these guys.
Yeah.
5-6 years later. So that's what I'm hanging with that weekend.
How's that reunite with Kurt, and you're like, dude, you opened the door when I was like 14, buck naked.
Yeah.
So
You have a big dick, by the way.
yeah. That far I can't always speak far. Thankfully, it kind of just.
It was really cold that night.
Shrinkage
is real.
So you, how much time was on your contract after this meeting? This initial meeting.
So I think that was in like September, and my contract was going to expire at the end of the year.
Okay.
And so, but I was already sold. Like, I already knew this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was just ready, gung ho. My friends were in it. I'm just watching. Like,
Hey,
these guys
you needed to jump at another brand anyway.
I know. It was time, dude. I was already bored.
Yeah. Dude, 6 months? Fuck this brand.
Yeah.
I'm on another one.
Way too long. It was time, dude. I had to, it's ready to make a move.
What do you got?
You brand whore over here.
Dude, I had to get a little taste of everything, like.
Of course. Why not? Life's too short.
Way too short.
You gotta go where the money is.
Well, at that point, I just knew, like, this is a turning point, and I just saw, like, this thing with Arnette was super rad.
Yeah.
Like, my friends are coming home, and, like, they're wearing radder shit than me. Their brand is radder than what I'm doing. And so, to me, at that point, it was just a no-brainer. Like, I was just kind of ready to just, try to figure out something else, get a job.
So you were coming to the terms of, like, okay, pro surfing might not be in the cards in the competitive way.
I think I always kind of knew that. Like, that was always in the back of my mind. But for me, it was always like, I was just really competitive, and I was going to take it as far as I could take it.
Yeah.
I was going to go as far as I can. And at that point, too, like, Chris and, like, Enoch, those guys are like, no, get over here. Like, you want to get on board, like, early on, like, be one of the first ones to come over. Because then you can kind of grow with the business. And, like, I remember Chris was always like, dude, you know how much the Oakley customer service guys make? Those guys make like $50,000 a year. And back then I was like, whoa, really?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
That's real money.
Yeah, back then I was like, real money. And so, here I am, like, I did okay in school, but my education went as far as a high school degree.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I was at least smart enough to think about these things back then.
Yeah.
So I tried, went in, did that thing. And then so after I went and interviewed with Greg and Chris, I went straight back to Farney. I said, hey, here's my situation. I want to go work for Arnette. And
Wow.
they won't let me do anything until you let me out of my contract. So I said, will you let
And
me
there's
out of
only
my
a couple
contract?
months left though, but
It's only a couple months left,
Yeah.
but I could see, like, that thing was growing like a weed.
yeah.
I had more
Kind of
friends.
buzz, yeah.
I didn't want to be like the last guy at the party. I wanted to be the first guy at the party.
Yeah.
So So I was like, I want to get on this thing right away.
I mean, that would have been my thing. It's like, dude, all my
For
friends
sure.
are there. I want to be with my friend. You know, like it.
And it was just cool. Like
Yeah.
I could just see like this thing was fucking.
And how did
cool.
what did Farney say?
So Farney, like he put the sales pitch. He's like, oh, you know, like what if we like, you know, put a little
Spice it
more
up a
money
little
in
bit.
the bank for you? Like you're not done. You know, what are you doing? Like trying to wrap this thing up. And I kind of got hyped on that for a minute. And I'm like, God, am I? Like I'm 19, like 18 or 19. Am I ready to go to work full time? You know, 8 to 5. So it's kind of like, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
But
Dangling the carrot.
I was like, you know, so he's like, think about it, you know. So I was kind of like, all right. So I don't know. I
Are
didn't
you
take.
confiding in your mom? Like anybody? Like
No,
with, like
I mean-
peers that you're like, hey, what should I do?
I mean, I had my friends that were there. Like,
Yeah.
Enoch, Chris are like, get out of it, get out of it. And then I had like Chad, you know, one of my best friends.
Who's
who-
diehard Oakley?
Who he's riding for Oakley. And
Yeah.
he's going to all these contests, and it's like, you know, we were kind of like his wingman. He's like, who am I going to go to contests? You know.
And to put it in perspective, what energy drinks are to sponsorships today is what sunglasses were to sponsorship. then.
Pretty much.
And I didn't
Not
even know
as
that yet.
big, maybe, but
I didn't even know that yet.
Like
Yeah.
the rivalries back then, and then
the rivalry is the money,
For
the
sure,
money
the money.
that you're getting paid. So
So anyways, we get past all that. Farney lets me out. I start working at Arnette. So I'm barely out of high school. I'm like 19 years old. I think I'm like, you know, number 10 in terms of like employees.
yeah,
So you walk in there and it's like the pecking order is like Greg, you know, Greg Arnette. And then you've got Bruce Beach on one side, he's running sales and operations. And then you got Chris Burke on the other side, like he's running marketing. And then I had a couple of my friends. So I was like, all right, fuck, I'm in. You know,
Yeah.
I got a job working 8 to 5 or whatever, 9 to 5. And so I felt like, okay, here we go.
what do you do?
So
Hey guys, what do I do?
yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting, you know. We so my first day, I remember I started. Do you guys know Kevin Kocha?
Yeah.
Does that name ring a bell?
Yes.
So my first day was his first day. We started together at the same time.
Shut the front
Wow.
door.
Yeah.
Is he from San Clemente? No.
No.
He's San Diego.
He
Right?
was another. So yeah, he was a friend with another one of this guy, Jeff Reese. You know Jeff and Rob Reese.
I remember Rob Reese.
Rob was like part of Visla.
Yeah,
De
yeah.
Blanc. So Rob and Jeff were like, Rob was like the finance guy there, and Jeff, his brother, was like the warehouse manager. So Kevin was buddies with them. So he came in, so we started the first day, and literally I started in production.
You started in production.
I started in production.
And that's just because that's where they needed a body.
That's just where they need a body.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of where you start from, you know, from the ground floor and you work your way up. And so there was like this little room.
Production's not the ground floor though.
Production
production's-
there was the ground floor.
Okay.
It was the ground floor. So literally I would sit there with this heat gun and you would pull these frames out of one box, heat up the frame, and then you take this other box that had lenses and you would pop them into the frames. So that's what I
I
did.
remember Bruce telling us that they came out and they had
Yeah.
to swap out all the
Yeah.
lenses.
Yeah,
The
so
blue,
that
the blue
that
lenses.
came, yeah, I remember that actually. That came a little bit later. So, but this was when like eyewear, like you didn't have like the mold injections and it didn't just come out of molds. You know, you actually had to like assemble shit. And then Greg back then was so meticulous with everything. Like you had basically like, I'm just a fucking guy walking off the streets and I'm like building your product, you know, and you're super meticulous. So he had this whole like kind of graph and you had to like build it, shape it, and had it fit in this like kind of this weird mold. And so that's what I did for 8 hours a day and started. And there was only a couple of us doing that.
What was your pay?
It's probably like minimum wage. You know, you didn't come over there for at that point for like, you know, a big salary.
Yeah.
You came over there for the
For-
culture.
The
Yeah.
culture,
For the
crew,
opportunity.
yeah,
Yeah.
the camaraderie, the
No, but it's pertinent to know what you're getting yourself into.
At that point for me, it was like, I have a full-time job, I could move out of my house, I could freaking, get a place with my friends, which eventually, those things happen, but yeah, it's just like career. This is like a career move. And
Yeah.
I knew like this is a career move. So I'm in the surf industry
Yeah.
and, fuck, maybe I don't have to go to college one day. Maybe I can just kind of stay here and just grow. So anyways, things there evolved really fast. I probably spent a couple weeks.
What is this? 93? 90?
This is like 92.
Okay.
Then we're kind of coming into 93. Like when I was there, they had just launched the second model, which was called the Raven. And that thing was even more badass than the Black Dog.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck.
And in our world, that was the first like bendable.
That was the coolest thing that hit our surf industry,
Yeah.
I think, in a long time.
It was the first one that you could bend the arms, right?
So you can kind of shape it, like have that metal hinge,
Mm-hmm.
where you can kind of shape it. But yeah, dude, I was still like.
I posted a photo of Tom Cruise in Jerry Maguire movie, him wearing
I
those.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's wild is they launch a brand on one model at a time. Like nowadays, you gotta have like a collection.
Yeah,
you gotta have like
Yeah.
It's like launching a podcast. You gotta have like 8 to 10.
But yeah,
You know?
totally not. But yeah,
No, that's what people say.
You gotta have two guys to make it like an actual like cast, and
Yeah.
like one hand feeds the other. One's the brains, and
but
one's
but
the
the
brains.
marketing, and
yeah,
The marketing.
the sidekick, talks about himself all the time.
So you're
but
in.
one model to two models.
Yeah.
yeah, it happened pretty quick. So
Yeah.
I think Arnette at this point is probably like in business for maybe 6 months. There's probably like a few weeks there where it was all just like, hey, this thing's coming. But Arnie was very like secretive. Like he never would give you more than he wanted you to see or even talk about.
Yeah, interesting.
And he's very like discreet with information. I just remember like I had the fucking pledge. There was no NDAs, but it was like this pledge, like you fucking walk in this door and you don't ever fucking talk about once you
The
leave.
first rule of Fight Club.
You don't ever talk about what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
In this place, and I was like, whoa, okay. Fuck, I don't have visibility or exposure to much. I'm just putting some shit together.
Yeah.
So yeah, started off was building shades, and then I remember we were working with Japan Optical at that time, and it was like at the same time there was like Arnie and Bruce and those guys were starting to kind of work with Italy, because Italy, they had molds, and you didn't have production there.
Italy was where you want to be if you're in the sunglass category, if you could get to that.
You kind of find out like Italy was
that's-
like the hot spot
for sure.
eyewear. And I didn't know that. I was just, like I just knew Japan Optical, like they didn't have molds, you were putting your shit together and it wasn't very good. And then all of a sudden we kind of made this move to like an Italian manufacturer. And so, through that process, that was probably like a 6-month process. And I just remember there was times like with production, like we would get a shit ton of production in and we'd have just stacks of orders. And dude, Bruce would come in, like be the end of the day, and he'd be like, all right, you guys, like everybody, all hands on deck, like the finance chicks and everybody, we need everybody, we need everybody like to stay late, and we need everybody like, you guys are gonna make product, you guys are gonna pack orders. And dude, it was like pretty quickly come to realize like, this thing was
blowing up.
gonna blow up fast.
Yeah.
Because we had a small team and dude, I can't even tell you how many times I would stay till like midnight, just boxing orders so that the next day, fucking pack those orders, and you know you have thousands of orders going out the door. So I think you know that kind of tells a little bit of story into my career. Is just work learning like work ethic.
Yeah.
That was the one thing I think that I learned the quickest working for like Greg and Bruce was like, you're coming over here and we own your ass. You know, like you don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, I can't stay late tonight and do the walk of shame while everybody else there is like busting their ass, you know?
Well, you know, in speaking with Bruce and then listening to his, you know, story about Arnette and how hard, but like how quick, you know, and how much success Arnette had so quickly, you know, it blew up pretty quickly, but it wasn't because not just, I mean, luck has a lot to do with everything.
Timing.
But the work that everyone put in.
Yeah, I mean, there's,
you know, like that really, you can't be successful without a lot of hard work.
No way. Yeah.
Bruce, Enoch, now you know, talking about Arnette, it's really, it's a trip to hear how much work it takes to you know, to be successful. Because like the orders coming in, that's step one, you know? The building of the product is step 2, and then the shipping of the product is step 3, and then getting paid for the product is step 4, right? Like all that knowledge, experience, and like, you know, going through all those experiences, dude, you're lucky you went to the, you know, we always say this, I went to the school of Huntington Surf and Sport, the University of Huntington Surf and Sport. You went to the University of Arnette. Yeah. Right? Like
you say that a lot actually.
Yeah. Because you know, business is so fundamental, right? It's like really simple in like the concept of business, right? Like you make a product, you market a product, you sell the product, right? It's pretty simple.
Product plus marketing equals sales, right? Isn't that the like scientific thing that you were taught many moons ago?
Yeah, but it's not just that, right? It's all the other things that, you know, that you have to have a successful business.
Timing, a crew, like you said. Like,
passionate crew.
You know, passionate crew.
Yeah.
But also like compelling product and compelling marketing. Like,
you got to disrupt like what was out there, and they were doing that. They came out swinging with something that's not a knockoff. That was in their own. You know, they're creating something different. But then they had the people, authentic people that had a lot of clout within the industry. Pushing it
for sure.
They had pride in their work and like work ethic and like wanting to succeed. For yourself, but also for all your bros that you're working with.
But Kurt Fry was, you know, like you brought him up earlier, but he was early on board.
Dude, he was a big part of it.
Yeah.
Big D, big C.
Big D, big C.
Yeah, whole like Central Coast.
Big F.
Yeah, big F. So you started in production. Walk us through your evolution at Arnette.
So yeah, I mean, again, like it happened pretty quick. Felt like we were bringing people in like every week or every other week. So I did production, like Kevin, Coach, and I, we were doing production, and then literally like a couple weeks into it, then I got moved into the warehouse, and I was like packing orders, you know, grabbing pick tickets and shipping, like just doing, you know, restocking pick boxes, you know, building inventory, all the shit that I just built. I take that, go load the pick boxes. So yeah, just learning those different parts of the business, which, you know, end up being so valuable later on. But yeah, so just kind of doing that. So warehouse, and then eventually moved into like customer service, warranty. And then we got to a point where the business was just fucking growing like really super fast, and we were just feeding it constantly. We lost production, so that ended up going away because now we're under like Italian made manufacturing, and so like everything's now coming to us like
Complete.
pre-made. Yeah, so it's basically you're just unpacking those boxes and just loading the pick boxes. So then it's like, you know, probably spend like a year or two in like customer service, warranty, and just learn like, you know, the value of like customer service, continue to learn the product, and then we get to a point where things continue to evolve. So then, you know, it's like myself and in the customer service, like warranty department, it's myself and Don Dyer.
Double D.
Double D. So Donnie and I, we get pulled into what they call the sales pit. And so,
Sales pit.
The sales pit. So we're all like in the warehouse part of the building, and then the sales pit, now you're actually like in the office part, right? And so now we're starting to work with like Bruce Beach, who was the VP of sales, and he was really, you know, kind of the head guy running the operation. And then we were working with the sales managers, who was Enoch, Jeff Davis, if you guys know Jeff, he kind of been around, JD,
Yeah.
and Gary Siskar. Siski.
Those three guys.
Those three guys. Those were your three sales managers. So Donnie and I, we come in, and we're just like these guinea pigs. Like, we're doing some order entry. You know, if order entry was all done, we're caught up, then be like, Enoch would hand me a call list and be like, all right, call these accounts, you know, in this territory. And so we just fucking start calling customers. Like, hey, you guys need anything? You know, it's like this whole, like, our department protocol was the reps were responsible to visit the accounts at least once a month, and then we wanted to touch the accounts with a phone call at least once a month. So it's just elevating customer service.
Yeah.
You know, and that was
The backup to the backup.
yeah. So it's just like, dude, constant communication, because our shit was selling fast,
Yeah.
and like the reps couldn't be in the stores fast enough. So Greg, Bruce,
What an incredible problem.
yeah, no, literally, it was fucking gnarly. Like, you know, I get a list of like 20 accounts, and probably 10 of them will give me an order,
Yeah.
and they just saw the rep 2 weeks ago. It's like, you know, you're a rep, you got a big territory. How often can you actually be in the stores unless you're like GT and you're in the backyard, and it's like, you know, you can see all your accounts in a day.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're doing these like cold calls, and we're now like officially in the sales department. And so I just remember like Bruce would come in, and it'd be like the start of the month, and he'd be like, all right, you guys, we need to do like 300 grand, you know, like this is our goal. And so I was like, you know, you have your sales managers, and they're like kind of divvying it up amongst the reps. So the reps had the goals, we had the department goal, and it was like, Sean, Don, okay, you guys are part of this too. I need you guys to, you know, make this many calls this week. And so that part, I feel like, was kind of a turning point in my career too, because that's when I was like, you know, fuck, I want to hit my numbers, you know, I want to hit my goals. Like,
Yeah. It almost sounds like a stock market.
Dude, it was like a stock market sales pitch.
Yeah.
What
You know,
was it?
Like a boiler room.
It was,
Almost, right?
You know, like we're fucking calling people, and
Was
reps
it,
were calling in, and
was it like existing accounts only, or would it be like, hey, I want you to search for new accounts and send
No.
a rep info on like these potentials, or
no,
No.
it's none of that.
Just
It was
you guys were like
existing.
you were the hot brand
It was-
that everybody wanted. So
count fill?
it wasn't like you needed to search new accounts. It was like you need to service accounts.
Accounts
For
are
sure.
calling in, open like, hey, how do we become a dealer? Were you getting those calls?
Yeah, sure. You have that.
No, those were good. The sales managers, like me and Donnie, we were like pretty green. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is like very entry level sales 101.
Yeah.
Just pick up the phone and, can you guys sell something? Okay, prove it. So that was like our task every day, like pick up the phone and like we were supporting the sales managers, we were supporting the sales reps.
Yeah.
You know, like GT was in Riverside. Okay, fucking call his accounts along the coast. You know, so it was like kind of a divide and conquer. So that was the model that was created in that sales department.
Right.
So
It's kind of really cool and
which relates to
interesting.
today, dude. If you're an eyewear brand, like how do you not go off that model? Even though you have all these technologies and B2Bs and all these different platforms, like dude, the value of a fucking phone call today.
Oh, the value of
Showing up or
Customer
Personal-
service.
yeah,
That
personal
touch.
service. Yeah, that's really what I don't know. To me, that's the key.
extra.
That's the key to long-lasting relationship and business relationship.
Can separate you from the rest of the bunch.
But it's really funny because like when you talk about that hierarchy of sales, right? You have Bruce Beach up here, and then the 3 managers, and then you 2. It's like, all right, you know, like it's like listening to a stock market, you know, bullpen. It's like, hey, we need to hit here. Okay, we're gonna separate those numbers. This, you know, this rep, this region, this, you know, this account base, and then bam, you guys follow that up. Like it's a
but
neat, like, you know, triage of like sales assassins.
but going back to like you guys paid for yourselves by having this infrastructure set up and you guys executing. Like right now, like you said, it should be the norm now, but I think companies would be like, well, we don't need these positions because we want to save $1 or it's not real, you know, like I think if you really look
Instead of having this guy, let's just have this guy do it too.
Let's make it automated.
Yeah.
You know?
but you know what I mean? Like if it's, you know, if you went back to that model, like people it would pay for like positions.
Yeah.
And it benefits the company and everybody, you know, in it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So
Could we pause for
pee break?
a pee break?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you guys good?
Yeah, man.
Water?
Yeah.
So, I mean, business just continued to crank, we were growing, and, you know, I'm in this role of sales, and I felt like, you know, this whole time, like, this is where I want to be. You know, I felt like this was a position that really suits me, you know, allows me to be competitive and always driving towards, like, sales goals and sales projections, and, like, I just want to fucking show up every day and win. That's it. You know, I didn't go to Arnette because I was going to make a lot of money. I went because it was an opportunity, and it was just like, you know, the cool brand.
Yeah.
And
With your
all my
bros.
friends were there.
Yeah.
So, you know, now the eyewear market is starting to get a little bit more saturated. You got brands coming in like Black Flies. They were, you know, making a good run, kind of had a different point of view.
Yeah.
And now there's like, the brand's growing, and now there's all this kind of weird shit happening, like always hearing like lawsuits with Oakley, and you know, those guys were like just intentionally like always throwing lawsuits at us just so that we would burn money.
Wow.
And be a distraction. You know, so then you think about, you know, a couple of years later, Dragon shows up. They show up in the picture, and ironically, it's like you got what was the guy's name? Will Howard, right? Will Howard.
Yeah.
Okay, he was a fucking head designer at Oakley, and
He
must have left
started-
on good terms because Jim Gennard and Oakley came in and financed Dragon because they needed something
Combat.
to try to slow down the
Arnette,
Arnette train because that thing was moving fast. So they never admitted to that,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's
We've heard it from other people.
Yeah.
Maybe from just the Arnette camp, but
it has to be the Arnette.
we believe it. We
I
believe
mean,
it.
dude, get some of those guys in here. I want to hear it. Like, I want to hear Farney admit, like, yes, I moved to San Clemente because
Yeah.
I was gonna block the whole like Arnette thing from happening.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at the team riders, and when Dragon, kind of like what Arnette did to Oakley, like as far as stealing particular people, like Dragon did the same. You know, you had like
Machado
Machado
rode
and
for Arnette, and
yeah.
then he rode for Dragon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he might have gone full circle because I think he left Oakley to go. Because I remember the story. I remember Big B telling me, he's like, yeah, he just got fucking Machado on board for free. He's like, he just left a paycheck from Oakley, but he's like, I'm just gonna flow him a few extra pairs of shades and he can go sell them to his buddies. So that's kind of like how
Yeah.
Chris, like, you know, how he would support bringing on like the Andy Irons and the Bruce Irons, like.
But we,
You know, they weren't paying those guys. They were just fucking giving them product to go sell to their friends.
Yeah.
but we talk about like this category exploding in the 90s.
Yeah, blew up.
You know, and then kind of the shoe scene kind of took right like immediately like right after like the shoe competitiveness and all the brands popping up and or whatever. But like sunglasses in the 90s, yeah, like holy smokes.
It was the
Pretty much just lit the industry on fire.
so
But there was a couple things we didn't really touch on too. Like, I don't, you know, there was a little bit of luck there, but I think a lot of it was timing. Because if you go back and look, like, that's when, you know, snowboarding was on the rise and like
goggles.
goggles, and that was, you know, a big part of action sports. And you had like punk rock music, you know, like that was a big part of the growth of action sports, you
Yeah.
know, and like the Warped Tours and all that stuff, like
MTV.
all those things.
MTV.
Yeah, all
I
of
mean,
Well, it was one of the few categories where, you know, like apparel wise, it was pretty like specific for that like culture or that sport or whatever, you know, like maybe a couple crossed over, but sunglasses kind of, it was a blank canvas to fit on anybody. Yeah, from a punk rock star to a moto dude to a skate dude to a surf dude, and then they started developing all these categories within it.
it's funny how the media and like, you know, music, it all intertwines with our culture, right? And how MTV back in the day, it made brands.
Marketing machine.
It made
Huge.
brands.
oh,
You know,
for sure, man.
Hurley,
Yeah,
you know,
at least built up
because of
that.
MTV, Hurley exploded onto the scene.
Yeah.
And, you know, talking with Bruce and like, you know, looking at the whole, the Raven with fucking, what's his face? Tom Cruise and the Beastie Boys. Madonna.
Fucking
Also,
Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, all,
Mike Piazza. from
Yeah.
the freaking Dodgers back then.
yeah. And
John
that,
McEnroe.
and that all like helped our industry and
Helped ignite our industry in a big way,
Yeah.
for sure.
Jay Larson with X Metal.
X-Men.
why does it always gotta be about you, bro?
Was that
Get
what
out
it
of here.
That's
So
what it was called. X-Men.
your role at Arnette,
Yeah.
you just kept elevating,
Yeah.
and sales was your
home.
forte, right?
Yeah.
Flora's forte.
That's Flers.
Flirt and
That was my sweet
Fleuriau.
spot.
Yeah, that was your sweet spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from there,
Cheerio, Fleuriau.
He's wanted to say that all day.
yeah, so gosh, from there we, you know, things were just growing at rapid fire, and you know, I talked about like, you know, the lawsuits, you know, like Oakley's fucking throwing lawsuits at us left and right. You know, rumor is they even financed Varney's lawsuit to when we had to change the
The
spelling.
name, the
to
spelling.
Arnette. Yeah, Arnette.
Wow.
Which is his real name, right?
Yeah.
But
But he liked the spelling.
he liked it shorter, yeah.
Yeah.
Fit nicely on the sides.
You know, was hearing they were like financing Dragon to come out, or not Dragon, obviously Dragon, but Black Flies, you know, threw a lawsuit at us for something, infringement on the patent or something. You know, the color of the lens. So it's like, dude, that was their strategy to try to put Arnette out of business.
And it's funny because
Fuck yeah.
that's what shrewd cutthroat businessmen do.
Yeah.
You know?
But I mean, they were a huge business, pretty much owned that space, and they just weren't like the cool guy anymore. Like they were too futuristic, even though like Oakley was still, cool in their own way. They had like a rad team. You had like best probably snowboard program on the planet. Terje, Brian Gucci, guys like that. But Arnette was kicking their ass fast, and they were just
in the space that created Oakley to begin with. Like Oakley's so successful in all these other markets that Arnette probably didn't really play, but it didn't even matter. It's about your home court, your home field, which was the beach.
Just came in very disruptive.
Yeah.
And put those guys on their heels. So ultimately, I think a lot of that kind of ended up playing into their hands, and somewhere in their kind of late 90s, Greg ended up selling the company to Bausch and Lomb. And Bausch and Lomb at that time owned Ray-Ban, and so we were the only two brands like under that umbrella, but that was like $1 billion operation. So, it was, I remember it kind of just being like a corporate change and noticing like a real like corporate vibe coming into the business. So there was like actual titles and, like just a very like corporate structure, more structure in the business. So now, those dudes are laughing. They got fucking paid out. Big B couldn't buy the fucking mansion up the hill fast enough. Couldn't furnish it, but he fucking bought the biggest house. And so those guys, their positions were now elevated. So now I think Bruce moves into the president role under Greg, and like Big B moves into like VP of marketing, and we start bringing in more people. So we brought in like Matt Patterson, Matto. He came in, he was running marketing with Big B. And then on the sales end comes the John Gothard era.
Oh shit.
So Gothard comes in and replaces Bruce as the VP of sales. And so that honestly was insane. That for me was great. Enoch, at that point, I think he kind of moved into a more international role. And JD ended up getting fired at a sales meeting down in Mexico. If you know who JD is.
Yeah.
And then Siski.
He lived with me in high school.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, I just saw him actually not too long ago, surfing T Street with his kid. And then Siskar kind of stayed as is. You know what? He might have moved into national sales manager. So we had VP, John Gothard, national sales manager, Gary Siskar. And then I moved into West Coast sales manager. And then Don moved into East Coast sales manager. So that's the structure. And that's, that was like, for me, like kind of a catapult into management. So I'm now a couple years in, and I've learned a lot about business, learned about, hustling and selling and product.
And building your
brand.
network.
And what?
Building your network.
Like having a named
Have a little bit of network, you know?
Like a named, basis at all the best retailers on, your area, which was probably regional, now your whole West Coast.
Yeah. So then I'm working with like probably some of the best in the business. So now I got Gothard, and then
Tom
GT,
Winchell,
Winch, dude, fucking Winchell, GT,
Big C.
I mean,
Killing it.
that's a
Sales
hard-
assassins.
ninjas, dude.
Yeah.
Ninjas. I mean, they put the bar at a totally different level than I think like any other reps. They made the Oakley reps look like fucking babies. Like I remember going on the road with GT for the first time, and that was a gnarly experience. GT, GT's like, he's fucking got more energy than
Larger than life.
dude.
Well,
Well, energy.
and it's so neat and like refreshing, but also like surprising. Where here you are, right? You look at GT, right? And GT is a snowboard legend, right?
Yeah.
Surfer, skater,
Commentator,
fucking.
entertainer,
He's the
Yeah.
class clown.
moto.
He's the class
yeah.
clown. He's a personality. He's the front man of a brand, right? He's just like,
But these guys made your jobs
but
easy because they hustle.
they hustle.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing about like you hit the road with those guys and you're like, whoa, GT's not just a funny guy. He's all business.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
Like-
we interviewed him,
like-
and it was like,
You're walking away with a fucking order every single time, no matter what.
yeah.
If
He's
they if they know or not.
he's like, I'm in every shop, the best shops on Monday, you know, which was the coast, and then Tuesday I'm in the best shops on the inland, and Wednesday I'm in the best shops that sold snow or moto, you know, like he had his program tight, and it was like he knew if he showed up consistently and hustled, like he was going to be winning. And
Well, it's
he
not
won.
even that. Like, yeah, he had it down to a science, but I remember his whole thing too. Like, we would walk in every store, and he always made it, part of his program to make sure he greets everyone in the store.
Yeah.
Like every kid on the floor.
It's the little things.
Knew their name.
Little things.
Always knew their name. And walk in and like greet everybody. Knew everybody by name.
Yeah.
Knew the guys that were like snowboarders, like, hey, did you get up on the hill?
Yeah.
Or like guys that were
Because
good,
when
like,
you're not there and he's not there and somebody
Those guys
comes
are.
in and says, hey, what sunglasses or goggles should I buy? Arnette. Because he's our fucking favorite guy.
So I feel like GT was one of those guys that raised the bar
Yeah.
when it comes to rugby.
Well, your whole squad there.
Yeah.
Tom
For
Winchell,
sure, but
fucking-
even amongst that group,
Yeah.
I was seeing things that he was doing that other guys were not.
Yeah.
So he raised the bar, and he was just the full package, dude. He was your
Yeah.
marketing guy, he's your fucking sales guy.
So how long were you at Arnette for, and what was
So
your?
ultimately, I was with Arnette, so Bauchelon owned the brand for a couple years, and then they ended up selling it to Luxottica. And so about 6 months into the Luxottica sale, you saw the impact pretty quick. All of a sudden, like, Greg Arnett's not there. Our finance department and our warehouse and like all these guys are gone. They're told to leave, they're clipped. And so really all that was left was like sales and marketing, and that's kind of it.
Wow.
A couple of the designers, a couple of the creative guys, and basically the team got cut in half, maybe more. So, and then like obviously culture changes instantly, and you just feel like, this is like family, for the last few years. And
So you left on like your terms versus getting forced out, or?
pretty much, so Gothard's still there. He kind of rode that thing out. He ended up going to Spy as a VP of sales. And then, I watched like Bruce, Don, Mike Carter, Kip, like those guys disappeared. And then
To form
to form Electric.
Yeah.
Didn't know that right away. And then you had like the GTs, Chris Burke,
Von Zipper.
a couple guys, Big C, like those guys went and formed Von Zipper.
Yeah.
So wild, right? Like that.
Dude, the nucleus
Nest
that
egg.
came from there
Yeah.
was just insane.
Yeah.
And like the fact that 25 plus years later, like those guys are still like relatively in pretty good positions.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, I guess like I was like one of the last guys
To stay in.
to kind of stick it out. At that point, it was me and this guy Todd. We were the regional sales managers, and like now I'm kind of integrated into the whole Luxottica program. And so I was going back and forth to Port Washington, New York, to report to these dudes who just didn't really understand what Arnette was, And they didn't buy the brands for Arnette; they bought it for Ray-Ban. you know, because again, they bought it as a package deal. So we were just like this, you know, kind of peripheral thing that we were marketing driven. There was big marketing expenses. Ray-Ban was just, you know, a brand, and they just integrated it into their system. It was like, you know, instantly fucking million to a billion.
Yeah.
You know, where for us, we were a marketing driven business and we were action sports. And these guys knew nothing about that world. So, saw that pretty quick. So, thankfully, I ended up getting a call from John Gothard. And Gothard calls me, he's like, hey, Flers, I'm moving some things around down here. You know, they're down in Carlsbad. And he's like, why don't you come down, check it out? And so he invites me down. I go down there and kind of brings me into the Spy world. And at that point, like, Spy wasn't the coolest brand, you know, like they had a good goggle business from what I remember. I think they were like an $8 million brand, and 5 of it was coming from goggles, and like had this little sunglass business, but it was like sport frames, like the Scoop series, and it was kind of lame. And but they had a killer goggle business for snow, and they were really big in moto. So he's like, you know, come down, check it out. I just wanted to check it out, you know, kind of meet the crew, see what you think. So I'm like, all right, go down there and meet him. And the president was Barry Buckles, who, you know, I don't know if he's around today, but so I go down there and he's like kind of showing me around a little bit, kind of just get a tour of the office, and brings me into the design room. And he shows me this frame that was pretty rad. You know, it's kind of like an updated version of like the Catfish, and it had like a little family of products around it. And he's like, we haven't launched it yet, but it was more like fashion kind of aesthetics, you know, not so sporty. And he's like, this thing right here is called the MC. And he's like, it's Jeremy McGrath's signature piece.
Wow.
He's like, we're getting ready to launch this. He's like, I need another regional sales manager. He's like, well, if I can hire you. I'm like, all right, let's go.
Wow.
That's kind of how that happened. So I was at Arnette, you know, I was there from 93 to 2001. So 8 years. Big part of my life.
Fucking long run.
Dude, that time of my life, that part of my career will never get replaced.
Yeah.
Ever. You know?
The brand, the
brand, the time,
the
action sports,
the small nucleus you came into to what you left at, you know, having it purchased 2 different times, the crew, like, you can't replace that.
Can't replace it. You know?
And all the knowledge and experience and the network you built from that, you know, time.
For
It's
sure.
amazing.
And for me, like, yeah, I'm in my 20s, you know, like, not much responsibility.
The trade shows,
We didn't even do trade
business
shows.
trips,
Yeah,
because you're
The sales
mixing
meetings.
business with pleasure
Yeah.
the whole fucking time.
which was
No trade
so
shows,
unique.
Oh,
because,
yeah, you didn't
they
do trade
put
shows.
they put the money
trade
into the
but sales meetings.
sales meetings, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
were
sales meetings.
gnarly.
Yeah, sales meetings were insane. Like, if you didn't get invited to sales meetings, you were bummed. So sales meetings were insane.
So
So how long with Spy?
So then I started with Spy, came in as a regional sales manager do you know Brian Casaro?
Yep.
You know Brian.
Yep.
He was a really good guy. So Brian was one of the regional sales managers, and another guy was Nick Wozniak.
Yep.
So if you know Nick Wozniak.
Yep.
So it was the 3 of us, and then Gothard. Gothard was our VP of sales, and then, you know, that was a cool little crew. We had like John Lee. If you guys know John Lee, he was marketing guy for a long time, Monster, Spy. Anyways, came into that business. We were doing about 8 million, and that thing took off pretty quick. You know, once we launched like this new line of eyewear, and
Did they launch helmets while you were there, or was that after?
no helmets. Yeah, maybe later.
Later.
Yeah, so, you know, did that. My position there never really elevated. So I was there from 2001 to 2008.
7 years.
7 years.
Fuck.
Yeah, it was regional sales manager.
8 years at Arnette, 7 years there. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of eyewear. Yeah, dude, like 15 years with Gothard. You know, I would say, you know, Bruce was probably like the first kind of real mentor for me. Working under him, you know, where I really learned like kind of just hustle, work ethic was probably the thing I learned the most. There was just like get in here and you work your ass off, and you work harder than the guy sitting next to you, and you're gonna go farther.
Yeah.
You know, and so I
And
did that. And
Gothard is the school of fucking talking shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So Gothard.
And not in a bad way,
No,
but in
no,
a
no.
really good way.
Yeah. And at this,
Gothard is so, he's like a swordsman with words.
Gothard's a
Yeah.
walking salesman.
He's a walking salesman.
Yeah. I mean,
and at that time, and even, you know, previously, like where the sunglass category was kind of blowing up, it was very lackluster support within the stores, like counter space, you know, like, and then it went to like towers and
Yeah.
towers and towers, and
Yeah.
where you're at, you know, it's not like you're
I remember when I was at HSS and
sunglass case. It was like a little
we
like
built the sunglass case.
yeah.
the one that's kind of still there.
It's still there, but
It was
on
different,
the other
but yeah.
side. Wasn't it on the
Yeah.
other side before?
It was on the other side.
It was on the other side, and that was like the first sunglass wall
Yeah.
that I never. Well, I didn't go to all the other places, but when we built that fucking sunglass wall, it was like game changer, and it was like, whoa, this is a category in our space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of we haven't talked about diverting in gray marketing, but
Yeah.
that funded
Yeah.
and
Ah, dude.
that was gnarly.
Yeah.
So gnarly.
So
That shit
fucking
paid.
gnarly.
That shit paid for me for a tabby trip. Thanks to Big C. Yeah.
Hey,
Big
hit
C.
this goal and you're going to Tabby.
Oh, it wasn't even that. It's like he's
Listen,
like Sean.
Dude,
Move a
GT, think GT too, and myself, because I used to do a lot of that.
Oh well. So Big C.
You're welcome,
Kurt.
Sean.
Kurt was doing these tabby trips every year. He invited me. I was his in-house guy, and he invited me. And I was like, you know,
I
fuck,
can't afford that
I
shit.
can't afford that, dude. Like I'm minimum wage over here. Your fucking monthly commission check, which I saw a couple like 20 and 30K commission checks.
Yeah.
You know, thanks to the gray market, was more than I was making in a year.
Yeah.
So Kurt's just like, you know what, dude? I'm gonna fucking pay for your trip. You're coming. I was like, dude,
Yeah.
thank you, Big C, if you're listening. That was
Of
my
course
first,
he's listening.
my first real like
That's epic.
surf trip. Big C
Yeah.
paid for it. Yeah.
He should have paid for a lot of them, dude.
But
I
that,
mean,
you know,
like the reps were good at us too, like back then. You know, like GT worked for Moro, so it was like, oh, Sean, you needed a snowboard? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, here's a
Need some boots, need a
Yeah.
jacket.
Yeah. So those guys were
yeah, they're your in-house support, and they lean on you when you're on the road. And
we
back
made
in the
those guys a
day,
lot of money too.
yeah, you know, there was
I
no
was
B2B.
calling
Yeah,
you
you
know, so I was
You're
fucking taking
you're
orders.
taking. You're probably there's
All right.
you're on the road.
Spy.
Yeah.
What happened with Spy?
So Spy, God, you know, that was another good run. We,
Fuck. 7 and 8, or 8 and then 7?
what do you mean? Oh, 7 years.
7 years.
2001 to 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in that time period, fast growth, brand did really well. We took it public. I remember we took it public in like, I think it was 2005. So we took it public and
You get some good shares early. Some equity.
I did, but
sweat
it
equity.
backfired.
Really?
Yeah, they gave us stock options. We took it, and it backfired down the road. But Spy was a good run. We had a sick team there, so this was like, you know, kind of like 2.0. You know, you got like Nick Hennessy. That's your boys.
Yeah.
You know, he's fucking kind of HB. I know he's still whatever.
Fountain Valley.
Fountain Valley. I know you guys probably don't let him sit at the peak, but like Nick Hennessy, you had Brady, Mitchell, Todd Madsen, like Terry
Todd
Claudio.
Madsen was a Spy guy?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we had a good crew there. Like
We did a insane Matawi trip. I don't know if you guys probably heard about that one.
Yeah.
So I think Nick told you guys.
Yeah, he told us
I
about
didn't
that.
give you. I don't feel like he gave you guys the whole nuts and bolts of that thing, but I think he left some stuff out, maybe protecting, some people. But
Yeah.
so
For
that
sure.
crew was insane. And then it's like we
What
went
happened?
public on the trip.
No. Like,
We can talk about the trip, but the spy went public, and then the Simo brothers, Mark and Brian Simo, who they were original founders, investors, took this thing public, and then they ended up being like majority shareholders. And so once this thing went public, kind of the rest of the crew got pushed out. So now these guys, kind of gnarly human beings, really like alpha business acumen. So they came in and they basically wiped out the whole like executive team.
dang.
So Gothard's gone, like all the VPs, VP of sales, Gothard's gone, VP of marketing, like John Lee's gone, and they took like the whole middle management and brought all of us up. So
With
you
no
know,
pay raise?
no, there was good pay raise.
Oh, wow.
The most money I've ever made in this industry was at Spy. So, it was kind of a blessing and a curse, like Gothard, I worked for him for 15 years-ish, something like that. And he was a big part of my growth and success in this industry. So, it was
A
fun to see that.
bittersweet promotion.
Yeah, I think Gothard's the guy you always want him on your team, because he could fucking sell anything to anybody.
Yeah.
And that's where
Ice to Eskimos.
Ice to Eskimos, yeah, you could probably does.
Weed to stoners?
Yep. Samuel lifeguard.
So how long at Spy?
7 years.
So 2008. I think they kind of pushed like that executive team out 2007. So I think for me it was like, is the writing on the wall? What's going to happen here? Didn't really know. Culture changed. I was making good money, but kind of felt like you just never know what's around the corner. The brand was still pretty strong, but it was kind of feeling like everything changed when you go public, obviously. It's like the whole purpose changes. Now it's like you're fighting for the bottom line. You're not fighting for your spot in the lineup, So at that point, then I decided to make a move. There was like a kind of a short stint, which you were a part of. Analog, Anon.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I was in there. I don't even put that on my LinkedIn because it's so short for me. Like,
Because it wrapped it up.
well,
Could have been a good move. It was a short stint for me too.
it was a short stint. Actually, it was kind of a bummer because I left Spy, which I was in a
Siskar.
good position. Yeah, I was there before Siskar.
Oh, you were?
But he came in a little bit later. But he was like the VP of Anon for sales and marketing. So I reported to him, and then we had a marketing guy that reported to him. But that whole thing just sucked. It was like 9 months, processing for 9 months, and then they decided to kill the eyewear program. They kept the goggle program. So basically, I got clipped after about 9 months.
Dang.
So from there, so that was kind of a short stint. But yeah, you were there. You were the sales manager for Analog. So LC and we worked together for a brief period.
I don't even
Teamed
remember.
up.
I don't remember.
BL.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had like BL and Kevin Meehan.
Yeah.
It was a sick crew. But
I liked everything about Analog and Gravis on the West Coast, and I hated everything about the Burton side of
same.
yeah.
Those reps.
The
had
reps.
Way too much fucking control.
Well-
I think LV didn't like me because I kind of pressed him on, selling more sunglasses because he was such a goggle guy, such a snow guy. And we just, conflicted. And I think he probably went to those guys and said, this guy's not good.
Yeah. it got too corporate, and it got too like leveraging. Like, let's leverage this.
You could
Let's
see
leverage
pretty
that.
quick like who was running the show. Like
Yeah.
the reps held more value than like management.
Yeah.
So if you were in good terms with the rep force, then you were good. But
Yeah.
if you weren't, you know, days were numbered.
Yeah.
So
Because for us, like our forte and our expertise and our network and our, you know, our bread and butter is surf,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And people want to do business with us because we surf and we have, you know, good work ethic, and you know, if we're putting a stamp of approval on a brand, right? Like they're like, okay, we'll roll with this guy because, you know, he's one of us.
yeah,
And it got to a point where it's like, you know, like I can't represent this. I can't
Yeah.
do this. So
yeah.
that's what happened, right?
Yeah, I would say that was probably the low point of my career.
Yeah.
Was that move?
Me too.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Whatever.
Which is a bummer because,
I spent 2 years there.
2 years. I was. Well,
you know, like they
9
say
months.
in any
You're smarter than I was.
any business,
I had
it
no
takes
choice.
it takes about 5 years for that brand to kind of like, you know, break it or make it. And it was at that like 5-year mark of Gravis analog, and you know, and obviously certain, you know, Gravis was getting a lot of traction with the bags, and you know, like Anon, I don't know if it was doing a ton in their space, but
Yeah.
analog was like
Analog?
right there
Yeah, had some traction for
to
sure.
blow up. And the hardest place, you know, to crack a new brand is in Southern California with all the competition and all the like kind of heavyweight like retail, and it was right there, and then
Yeah.
done.
I mean, dude, like they blew the thing up prematurely.
Yep.
And so like I had
For
some,
sure.
I definitely had some resentment towards like Burton and
The marketing, the
Those
team,
those
and then
guys.
people running it. I mean, you know, again, like you said, and then like the East Coast vibe versus what was going on here. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you, Meehan, Addie Patterson, like, you know, they had a good team. You know, they like the athletes.
Yeah.
They had a great.
Dude, we gotta keep going.
Yeah.
We're at 3 hours.
All right, so we'll keep going. Okay, so analog, you know, for me that was just kind of a short stint, low point for sure, but it led to new opportunities, right? So one door closes, another door opens.
Yep.
And for me, I had an opportunity to join Vans. You know, I kind of always had like this relationship with Jeff Moore. You know, like Jeff was somebody that I respected. He was always like kind of high level management.
Where's Jeff Moore from?
I think like the North County, San Diego area.
Okay.
So when I was working at Spy, you know, I'd meet up with him every once in a while for coffee down at Starbucks. And, you know, I think we just somehow connected through surfing and, you know, whatever. I can't even remember like how we connected, but every once in a while we just meet up for coffee and just talk surfing. We talk shop, you know, business.
So
And,
so you got
So Jeff was the VP of sales for Vans, and position opened up, and I joined the Vans team as the core channel sales manager.
sick.
Yeah, so that was awesome. I think you were at DVS, I remember,
Okay.
because I remember that,
And that's the time where Vans, at that point when you probably were there, it wasn't very cool.
no, it wasn't.
It
So
sucked.
we were kind of on the
You were
low
in the-
end,
in the
coming
coals.
back up.
Yeah.
We were kind of coming back up, so it was like hockey stick. So yeah, I remember when I joined, you know, Nike was like
Yeah.
the hot commodity,
Which
you know?
yeah.
But it kind of turned while I was there, because again, so now we're talking 2008 to 2010.
Yeah.
I spent 2 years with Vans. It was short, but you know, I mean, that experience was invaluable for me because I learned a lot there too under Jeff, and you know, Jeff at that point was probably the most strategic person I've ever worked for. Very high level. I always remember him telling me like, dude, get out of the weeds. You know, you gotta fucking run your business high level. And so that was a good experience for me. Again, too, it was like walking into a situation where, yeah, we weren't like the most valuable brand on the shoe wall at that time. It was all about Nike, but it started to turn as the market turned, and we were kind of went into that weird recession, like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, like, kids stopped spending $90 on that cup sole and went back to the $50 freaking vulcanized shoe.
Yeah.
So I was actually there when Vans hit their first 1 billion, which was pretty rad. It was
Yeah.
a sales meeting.
You were part of the upswing of Vans.
Yes, on an upswing, it
Yeah.
just kept swinging. But for me, like, that was kind of a short stint, only because when I signed on, my travel was supposed to be like 30-40%, but we had some changeover because, again, you're talking about like big box stores. And so when I came in, like, our focus just shifted to the core channel. And so I was, we were making rep changes, and like we had this whole like cadence, like every rep had to kind of walk the walk, talk the talk. So it's like if they weren't a skateboarder or at least surfed, they weren't, going to be a part of like the core channel sales team. So Jeff basically came in and cleaned house, made a lot of changes, and we put together like a whole new sales force. So when I started, there was a vacancy in Florida. So came in, we hired, a new team there, and I was literally, for 2 years, I was traveling to the East Coast 3 weeks every month.
Damn.
It was fucking crazy.
You had a week home every
I
month?
was a week at home. Yeah, basically got to the point where I'd show up at Orange County Airport every Monday, and the security guys knew me by first name. It was
Nice.
nuts. And it's just like, at that point, married, young family, kids are young, and dude, you come home on a Friday and you barely have enough time to just catch your breath before it's like the next trip. So that position, and now kind of looking back, like, it just has a lot of high turnover, and but it's a great experience. I'm
Yeah.
super stoked that I was able to kind of go there and learned a lot along the way. But ended up leaving there after about 2 years, and had an opportunity to kind of start like kind of my own brand. This guy who was on our Mentawai's boat trip with the Spy Crew, he was our chef. This guy Andre Sickinger. If that name rings a bell.
Andre what?
Sickinger. He's like a chef. He worked for the Indies Traders for a long time. He was our chef on our freaking Indies trip to the Mentawai's with the Spy Crew, Nick, Matt Bovard. You guys probably heard.
Yeah.
Fucking almost died.
Yeah.
Bovard beat the shit out of one of our chefs. The guy fucking tried to light our boat on fire.
Yeah.
Tried to stab him.
Fucking, yeah, guy tried to stab Bovard. Brady fucking grabbed his arm and literally like got a machete out of his arm. It was nuts, dude. That was a crazy trip. So anyways,
That's a whole nother story.
that's a whole
That's a
other
whole
story.
other
It's a
podcast.
whole nother.
Yeah, I think
We'll wait for Bogart to
It's
tell
a
us
whole
that.
nother hour.
Yeah, dude, get Bovard to tell that story, please. But yeah, great trip. Scored waves. Anyways,
What
so
brand did you
Andre,
start?
what's that?
What brand? Yeah, what brand?
I was at Spy.
No, like the chef started a brand.
So I started a brand. I was at Vans at the time, and so I get a call, like some of that crew, like, so Andre was our chef on that trip. He worked for the Indies Trader. So he reached out to some of us, like Gothard, myself, Brian, Nick Hennessy. He's like, hey, I just got the license for this brand based out of Australia. It's an eyewear brand, and it's kind of a price point, kind of that time, like a mid-tier, like Hoven. And he's like, I got the license, and can you guys just kind of point me in the right direction? So everybody kind of jumped in and just said, well, this is what you want to do, probably, put yourself somewhere in Southern California, Orange County, and just try to kind of help give them a little like direction, like where to base and, how to run a business.
Yeah.
And so he gets over here, and he's got the license to.
Did you see the product at all yet?
North
Or anything?
America. Yeah, so he shows up, and he was actually at Surf Expo. I think that was one of the things I said, like, you should go Surf Expo. Here's a couple guys that could potentially be sales reps. You gotta pay these guys commission. And so I see Andre show up at Surf Expo. I'm there with Vans, and I check out the product. It's like a full range, like 20 styles, like great price points, like $60 polarized. And I was like, whoa, this thing's actually like pretty legit. And he's like, yeah, but I don't really know what I'm doing. And
But it's impressive.
but yeah, I'm like, fuck, for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, like,
What was it
I'm
called?
impressed.
Filtrate.
So it's called Filtrate.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
So it's called Filtrate. You know, they've been in Australia. You know, they told me for like 7 years and had like a $500,000 business, something like that. I've never heard of it, but looked interesting to me. You know, and that was a time when like eyewear was like you were either at the bottom or you're at the top in terms of price point, but there was nothing really in that middle. And so he's like, hey, how about this? I got a couple investors lined up. They want to invest in this thing, and
Need to
bring
launch it
somebody
like
in.
legit.
Yeah, I just need to bring somebody in who just knows the market and can help me run this business. So he's like, you know, I'll give you some equity. And so I'm like, oh yeah, now you're speaking my language. So we ended up getting this guy, Lewis Bird. He was like a big Nike, came from Nike, like big executive from Nike. He's like came in, invested a bunch of money, and so that financed the business. And we already had like product and all the marketing and creative was coming out of Australia. So I was like fuck, all you need is somebody to come in, like hire some sales reps and just go attack the market. And so he's like, yeah, that's you. So basically offered me something that included ownership and was a little bit more money than what I was making at Vans. And so I was like, okay, let's go.
We need the warehouse right around the corner from my house. And
San Clemente.
Yeah.
Yeah, so dude, easy. Like just put the warehouse. I think they already had that. I think he was already in San Clemente, so
Yeah.
it made it easy for me to
Yeah.
go and meet with them. So yeah, that was kind of a fun run too.
How long was that?
That was about 4 years. What was that?
Wow.
So 2010 to 2014.
So you grew up from pretty much nothing in America to what when you left in 4 years?
It was like 3.5, 4 million. You know, which doesn't
bad.
sound like a lot, but there was just a lot of challenges there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like investors, finance, the back end, for sure. There was there was some friction too with like Andre, who owned the rights to the US. And then you had the guys in Australia who started to see like, whoa, dude, these guys are fucking passing us up in the first 6 months. They're doing more in 6 months than we've done in 7 years. And so they started to want to get involved.
Trying to force them out and do some weird
Well,
things.
just eventually that's kind of what happened, but it was like, you know, then we brought in a bigger investor, and then we brought this thing into a global entity. So at the time it was like, you know, we had a percentage of like a distribution agreement, but then we formed it into a global entity.
And do you get a percentage of the
So
global?
then my like 10% of the US was like 3% of this like global entity.
Yeah.
Which is still insane, you know, because that was handed to me. And then
To work out.
from
get
there,
some
well,
cash
then,
when you
then it's
left.
like, then the investors were like, hey, we want, you know, the Australian team to come out here and be based out here and kind of have you guys all together, because like they were kind of a bigger driving force for design, but we were running a bigger business. We fucking like overshadowed their business in 6 months. Yeah, so it was like, you know, we ended up getting like Tilly's on board. They came on board like all stores and like REI, and you know, we started.
Yeah, I remember. I kind of remember Filtrate.
For
Yeah.
sure. No, it was definitely.
So it happened quick, but then at the same time, you know, we had some challenges with production, and like all of a sudden, like the East Coast and anywhere that had like a humid climate, Puerto Rico,
started twisting the
Florida,
frames.
dude, like the polarization was like delaminating
Ooh.
and it was like, and those were good areas for us.
And those were the
So-
good areas, yeah.
So then it was like, oh shit, red flag. Our production sucks, and this again is coming from the guys in Australia because they controlled all of our design and production. So then it was like, now we really need these guys out here so that we
Could show them firsthand, like,
run
yeah,
this
all
business.
the issues.
So those guys, there was some friction there. So the Aussie crew came out, kind of pushed Andre out of his position, and kind of sucked because like him and I together kind of built this whole market. And so these guys came in, little, they had an ulterior motive in mind, kind of to find out. I think the one guy was like getting a kickback from the factories. So it was like, hey, this product
No, this factory's good, dude. We'll just give him another chance. And he's
Dude,
good.
it was like,
Yeah.
he's like, hey, we have inventory, but it's like, no, we need another PO. We need to place more production. I was like, dude, I think we're good. Like, I think we just need to get like, put a little away, like, make sure, we've got some finances and resources to like continue to grow. Like, we don't need more inventory. So I don't know. There's some weird things going on there, but it was always like they would never stray from our production facility, and we just continue to have issues with production.
So you saw the writing on the wall.
So we never got around it, and so ultimately, I had to walk away because one, you got a reputation online, and I'm working with like, the Bruce Cromartys of the world and like the Jacks of the world, and it's like, at some point, I just couldn't get behind it anymore.
Yeah.
And like tell these
You gotta
guys,
believe. You gotta be.
That's
you gotta believe
a
in the
hard
product.
thing.
it's a hard position to be in.
Yeah.
So
Because you move from company to company, and you get to this place where you have ownership, right?
Yeah.
And when you have ownership, you have
You're way more
pride.
passionate, pride. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and people, like, you're telling people, hey, this is shit.
yeah.
This is a shit, and I'm an owner in this, and you need to back me and this brand.
Yeah. So
So it's a hard decision.
at the end of the day, we couldn't get around it, couldn't get it fixed, and to me, it just no longer felt good. I couldn't sit there and like talk to the crew at Jack's and 17th Street and Heritage and those guys and try to sell them on something that I just didn't feel good about. So, so from there, I left and ended up going to a brand called Rich Rapport.
Socks.
Tees.
So socks, tees, that stuff kind of came a little bit later, but that was at a time when like Stance, that category was on fire. Like Stance came into market.
And talking about brands that started in the same town, right?
Yes.
Richard Porson, right
Yeah.
there, San Juan, or
Yeah,
was
San
it
Juan.
San Juan
Yeah, Cabo Beach.
and Cabo Beach? So like,
Which is funny because we just had Kingman on,
yeah,
and Kingman
I need to listen to that one.
brought the he's like Stance came on, and he was like, who would have thought another sock brand was happening in the same fucking at the same fucking time?
Yeah.
But we didn't talk about Richard Porter that much,
Specifics.
but we brought it up. It was like
that's
wow.
why I mentioned it. I'm like, wow, they started in the fucking same town, like
same time too.
same time, yeah.
A little bit later, I mean, Stance was probably maybe a year or two already in.
Yeah,
They
definitely.
had a huge head start, but Stance was like the more action sport brand. Richard Porter kind of came in with a little bit different
More
approach.
slack, more dressy, like
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
more
Tim
elevated, kind
Morse?
of more contemporary.
Yeah,
Tim Morse.
contemporary.
Tim Morse was, he's one of the owners.
Because I saw that brand in a lot more of the stores I sold
Boutiques.
Rupert in. That was,
Yeah.
like Stance was, like you said, more like core action sports. And
More action sports, and so we kind of looked at like, hey, this is an opportunity to kind of be like this whole like Coke and Pepsi thing,
Yeah.
like Vans and Nike, Channel
Yeah.
Islands, Mayhem,
yeah,
Billabong, Quicksilver, whatever, so kind of looked at it like that. Maybe there's an opportunity to expand on this category because
So,
that category was hot.
Did Tim start it, right?
Tim started it with his partner was Eva, his girl Eva. They started it together, and it was really cool. Like in the beginning, like what is it? Not the Black Eyed Peas, but fuck, what's that band, dude? Come on, help me out. Black?
De La Soul?
No,
Tribe Called Quest.
no. It's Black Keys.
Black
Oh,
Keys.
Black Keys,
Black Keys.
the rock and roll.
Alicia.
Yeah,
No.
Black Keys.
No,
Black
Keys.
Keys.
But
Not
no,
Black
not
Eyed-
Alicia
Not Black Eyed
Alicia
Keys.
Keys.
Black
Eyed-
Keys.
Not Alicia Keys, not Black Eyed Keys. Black Keys.
Yes.
Ah.
Black
Those guys are behind it.
Yeah, they were.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
they
love
were
Black
investors.
Keys, by the way.
So they were doing all these like
I like
cool
Alicia
like
Keys.
Black Keys collaborations, and like they're like, yeah, you want to go to a concert? Fuck, anytime. There was a killer Black Keys collaboration when I signed up. So anyways, like, hey, this is a model that I'm very familiar with, count and fill, but a category not so much. So, but anyways, I was just sitting here on the sidelines looking at Stance just go freaking crazy, you know, creating a category and you know, just that success was insane to watch. So, anyways, did that. That was kind of fun, you know, for me. I was there for 4 years and we took that thing from pretty much nothing to about 6 million.
Dang.
So yeah, it's a lot of socks.
Yeah.
But it expanded, you know, like men's underwear, and then ultimately there was like a
All I
Dude,
wore.
This guy ate
was-
my promo budget.
Yeah, I took your
Four
promo
tees.
budget.
Great tees, just
Great
pocket
pocket
tees.
tees. Black, white,
thicket,
navy.
felt
That's all I
good.
ever wore.
Yeah, you.
So they kind of developed this whole like basics program. So it was like basic tees, like sweats, fleece. And so that was cool. You know, but it was pretty contemporary. You know, it was a little bit kind of out of my lane, but it was fun for me to kind of learn.
Yep.
You know, that contemporary business and like who the players were. And so I did that for 4 years, and then fuck,
You want to go
Tommy
back there?
Gunn.
You want to go
Tommy
back
Tommy
to
Gun,
The
action
pirate ship
sports?
pulled
the
up.
pirate, yeah.
Pirate
Ahoy!
ship pulled up. Yeah.
Ahoy, Flers.
So that thing came up, and I remember I was at Surf Expo.
We're talking about Salty Crew for those that are listening.
Tommy
Yes.
Gun.
Yes.
Tom Ruiz.
So I was at Surf Expo, and I had a booth, a Rich Report booth, right next to a Globe booth. And so I was there, you know, kind of hanging out with Sherwood, and I was kind of like, yeah, this thing, I don't know, it's okay. Wasn't super fired up, you know. They wanted to kind of take it out of wholesale and
Direct to consumer.
more direct to consumer, and they wanted to kind of get out of surf and focus more on women's. So I was like, okay, you know, fuck, I don't know. My days sound like maybe they're numbered here. So, anyways, talking to Sherwood, and he's like, dude, he's like, Salty Crew's hiring for a sales manager. He's like, you should go talk to Tom. And I'm like, well, I don't really know him, but he's like, oh, don't worry about it. He's like, well, I'll introduce you. So that was setup day. So we're done with setup. We're all staying at the Hilton, you know, Lazy River. And so I come down there, actually with Tim. Tim was with me. We're walking down. We're just going to jump in the pool. And I hear, Fleuriau. I look over and there's Sherwood and Tom Reese sitting at the bar, hanging out, having a beer. He's like, come over here. And so I'm like, so I tell Tim, I'm like, hey, I'll come meet you. I'll come jump in the water. I'll be there in a minute. Because I already knew, like, walking in over there, like,
You can't bring Tim.
I can't bring my boss and fucking interview.
Yeah.
So,
You knew you were getting interviewed.
yeah,
Yeah.
I knew that was the intent.
First impression.
The initial talk for the rest of yeah.
Your first impression. You better
Yeah.
do that tough guy shot right away.
So, I mean,
Tough guys.
yeah, just hanging out having beer, and yeah, this good first kind of like intro, you know, just kind of warm up.
Yeah.
That was a warm up, you know, kind of a tester. You know, Tom like quizzed me on a couple things, asked me a couple things, and you know, I sure would support. So that was huge because you know, Globe had already taken 50% ownership of Salty Crew.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was talking to Tom a little bit at the show, and he did tell me, he's like, hey, kind of coming in late to to the interview process, but let's hook up when we both get back into town. So, being a sales guy that I am, I kind of took advantage of my time at the show, and like I remember I saw like Tyler Brown and Tom Brown, and I'm like kind of pulled them aside at the booth. And I'm like, hey, I'm applying for the Salty Crew job. What can you tell me? And so Tom's just like, whoa. He's like, my #1 t-shirt brand. And they were both like, dude, Salty Crew's killing it. I'm like, Tyler, will you put in a good word for me? He's like, dude, I'm gonna walk over there right now.
Yeah.
Epic. And so I knew a couple of the reps. Terry Claudio, he was one of my reps for Spy.
You laid the foundation.
Dude, I already knew. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm coming in late. How do I fucking get
Yeah.
to the top of the lineup, you know? So I started hitting up a couple accounts, you know, kind of discreetly. Hit a, like Jenner at Active, just a couple people, you know. And so those guys made a couple phone calls.
You went on the offense.
Dude, went on offense
Yeah.
straight away. And, you know, like Casey, obviously I know Casey. Like Casey and I have like some family ties. My stepdaughter is Casey's niece. So, you know, Casey and I, we kind of share like some family ties.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know that. Did you know that?
yeah,
You guys are tied in?
we're tied in.
You
Dude.
and Curtis?
Curtis.
Casey Curtis?
Yeah, a little bit long story.
Knee brace?
We'll have to go kind of rewind the timeline there if you want, but so anyways, yeah, just fucking probing
Working the
Tom.
angles.
Just,
Yeah.
just won't even let him go, dude. Texting him every day, calling him, and I was like, dude, I want to get back into like kind of more like action sports. So yeah, that ended up working out, you know, paid off, and you know, I think I paid enough people, you know, to kind of be in my corner, and ended up getting hired there, and that was a fucking dream run. That was the last 4 years of my life. Yeah, jumped on the pirate ship.
Yeah.
And what a great time, because like you said, they were blowing up. And
Blowing
are
up,
still.
blowing up. Yeah,
Still.
I mean, dude, that thing is on fire for
Yeah.
sure.
That was the rocket ship.
I mean,
Another rocket ship.
I mean, taking a
Arnette was a rocket ship,
Yeah.
and then bam.
I mean, what can I say, dude? It's been a pretty good run between Arnette, Spy, Bands, and then Salty Crew. Like,
But you know, and again, tip our hats off to the guys at Salty Crew. Is, you know, there's so many watermen within our industry, and there's so many people that are at it, like divers and fishermen and stuff. And it's just kind of like that silent parallel, and they came out and exploited that part of everybody's kind of hobby / passion / like part of their life.
Yeah.
And a perfect timing with a perfect name that ties back that Jared's, you know, Bodie grew up on with his, you know, like it's just a Cinderella story, you know, in a sense.
It's a great American story.
It is. It's freaking
It's
awesome.
a perfect storm, you know. And when you think about like the kind of the four like main people involved in that business, with Jared,
Yeah.
you know, being the founder, Milo
Milo,
from Hanger,
dude.
you know,
An
the other founder.
incredible businessman, retailer / brand builder that created
It's
S&P.
another Arnette in a weird, like,
It was, and that
parallel.
trajectory was pretty similar
Yeah,
in terms of like how fast like that brand
'Cause-
grew.
because you have like in a different category, you have Bruce Beach, Tom Ruiz, right? Those two guys that like are up here, and then the guys that work with him, you, right?
Yeah,
Instead of sunglasses, you're selling fucking, you know,
Fish tees.
yeah. I mean, hats and tees, lots of hats and tees.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, I think everything there again, it was kind of timing. It was kind of just a perfect storm because you got, you know, obviously Jerry Milo, the founders, then you bring in Tom, who's, you know, I would say probably one of the best in the business when it comes to like apparel, just knowing how to run that apparel business acumen, connecting the dots, working with design, production, and just bringing the whole team together.
Yeah.
Probably best in the business, I would say. And then you've got CJ Hobgood. I mean, that's
World
just
champ.
it's a dynamic little team right there. And then you bring in Globe, who runs a very good operation.
Yep.
You know, you put those things together, and you're basically teed up for success.
Yeah.
So, but that was a great ride. you
And
know?
and at Salted Crude, you ran
Sales.
U.S.
I was
sales, like
I
national
was
sales
national
manager.
sales manager. So Tom's role, you know, his
Global
title I think was
VP,
like
president, whatever.
global
like
sales director. But yeah, you know, I'd say like kind of the first year with him,
Yep.
he was pretty hands-on. You know, and like to just really have like that control of everything that happens in the department. And then, you know, as I kind of learned how he operates, and he's fucking gnarly, dude.
Gnarly.
One of the
You gotta
gnarliest
learn
in our
fast.
business.
Yeah.
You gotta fucking
Hats
learn
off,
fast.
Tom Ruiz.
Yeah.
You gotta learn fast.
Arr,
You gotta know your
yeah.
shit, and you gotta be in fifth gear all the time.
Yep.
Because if you don't,
Is there more gears in fifth gear?
Yes.
So
There is?
you
Yeah.
put it into fifth gear and you stay in fifth gear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just Tom, he knows his shit, and so you kind of had to learn fast. That for me was my first real career in apparel. You know, I didn't have, as you guys can see, I don't have an apparel background,
Yeah.
and so now I'm kind of learning from the best. So you had to learn quick, and you know, timing was everything. So you know, I'd say after like the first year, he kind of loosened up the reins. I don't even want to say that because he's like, are you kidding me? You know?
Yeah.
You just learn how to work with him.
Well, you just know, eventually you just kind of know
His
like,
expectations.
what the
Yeah.
expectations are.
Yeah.
And so,
And they become your expectations.
and they become my expectations,
Yeah.
and you fucking kind of turn it into
Passing them.
Tom 2.0.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it was a great run, and
Opportunity came
hard
up.
to leave, super hard to leave. But at the same time, you know, where I'm at in life, in my career, you know, that's a big business, and it's a great business, and I'm super fortunate and blessed to have been a part of that journey, you know, going from like, I think 13 million to almost 50 in 4 years, you
It's
know,
wild.
dude,
Yeah.
I lost a lot of fucking personal time, you know?
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah.
no joke, I was pretty much
Running.
working like 12
So-
hours a day.
Yeah. You're in a marathon with this. It's
So,
like
yeah, I was a
Iron Man.
It was a sprint, dude.
Yeah.
So, I just, I think I got to a point where, you know, for me, like I've been doing this a while, and I think it was just time for me to look at my career path and what was next. And even though, you know, there was probably some opportunity to stay there and maybe continue to evolve, this opportunity with Rhythm came up. And for me, the attraction was right away. You know, I've always been a fan of the brand. You know, from just design, aesthetics, kind of their place in the market, point of view. I was always kind of attracted to Rhythm, and I just felt like, you know, there's kind of a lot going on in the market, and you know, maybe now was the time to take my career and like just elevate my career.
Yeah.
You know, felt like it was kind of time to do it. So that opportunity was presented, and yeah, that's where I'm
That
at
happened
today.
pretty
Happened.
recently, right?
Well, yeah, I'm 2 weeks in.
You.
I'm about 2 weeks in.
You got a Christmas present.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been kind of a crazy ride, you know, like my exit with Salty was a little bit extended. You know, I think it kind of came to them as a surprise. And, you know, because Salty, that was family, you know. And so, but, you know, I feel like I got their blessing. I left on good terms, and Tom was like, hey, you know, I'm happy for you. Yes,
Yeah.
you know, like you've worked your ass off, and this is opportunity for you to, you know, elevate your role and kind of take your career into a whole new dimension. So
Cool.
I was stoked to get their blessing, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
3 weeks.
We're fucking.
We
You know me. I've always been a big fan of Sean Flers, Fleuriau. Right? Like when I first started working with Outer Known, and I needed a place to like show Outer Known at Surf Expo, dude, you were like, dude, come to my booth.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? You're gonna let me, show my line at your booth? And you're like, yeah, fuck, dude, do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've had you and I together. I mean, we've had a good run. You know, our positions have always been pretty similar. You know, and
But I'll never forget your generosity, and even Tim didn't even care. I was like super psyched on that.
yeah,
Like,
dude. I mean, like, hey,
it was
let's
not
stick
a
together.
problem at all.
Yeah.
And that's what our industry is about. Like,
Yeah, we're all competitors
Relationships.
Yeah.
again, in
It's
within the
relationships,
brands we
community.
work with, but we're all in this to win.
we want all of us
Yeah.
to succeed, and
If you're winning,
we're all winning.
we're all winning.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah.
So it's good for the industry. So, but that brings us where we're at.
Well, we'll
today.
have to do a follow up after you've gotten your, your
1 year after.
1 year anniversary
Yeah.
here.
We'll see
Yeah.
where things are at.
Yeah.
But things are good. I mean, I'm stoked. I got a good little team, and we own a factory, so it's like being in the apparel business, like that's a huge advantage.
Oh. Dude, I think in this new retail climate, the biggest brands, they're still the same. You have your Quicksilver, Billabong, Ruka, but Rhythm is definitely has a stake in the market. And you're at a good time of it being introduced to the brand. You're like the perfect dude to elevate the next evolution of what rhythm means to the
Again,
market.
it's timing.
Yeah, it's a
I
great
think
time.
there's a good time, and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of good brands, and for me, I always look at things like timing always plays a hand in success, and so I saw the same. I'm like, okay, the timing's good. I know a couple accounts have already told me like, yes, the brand's already been doing good. We see opportunity for growth, and I already kind of knew like the men's product was good, did pretty well, but women's and then swim, like Rhythm Swim's like number 1 and 2, 3 like in the market for most of the shops. I was like, that's enough to get me excited to come over here and
Spread that across other categories and divisions and boost it.
That's it, man.
Dude,
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Congrats on the new position.
That was
Appreciate
awesome,
it.
dude.
We'll see you at Surf
Cheers,
Expo next week.
It will be there.
Not sharing the
We're
booth,
gonna
but
go hijack the Salty Crew dinner again.
Why wouldn't we?
Dude, I'm in.
at least drinks.
Do it.
Happy New Year. Congrats, Sean, Flers, Fleuriau.
Yeah, thanks, boys.